Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I read this statement on behalf of Senator Professor Senior Counsel Tom Ojenda. First is a statement on professionalism in the public service transport sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding professionalism in the public service transport sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 12th of March 2025, a conductor of a Super Metro Circle Limited, Super Metro, passenger service vehicle pushed a passenger out of a moving bus, leading to a passenger's untimely death. This reckless and inhuman act is not only a violation of human rights, but also raises concerns about the professionalism and conduct of PSV drivers and conductors across the country. In the statement, the committee should address the following. 1, the actions being taken by the National Transport and Safety Authority and other law enforcement agencies to fast-track investigations into the specified tragic incident and to prosecute those responsible. Secondly, the measures in place to ensure strict adherence to PSV operators to establish professional standards in respect of licensing, training of their drivers and conductors, and enforcement of ethical conduct amongst the drivers and conductors. Third, the steps taken to curb misconduct and violence by PSV drivers and conductors, including the disciplinary and monitoring mechanisms in place to guarantee passenger safety. Fourth, policy or legislative proposals to enhance professionalism, accountability, and overall passenger safety in the public service transport sector. On the second statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations regarding the violent clashes that occurred on the 22nd of February 2025 in Sondu town, which is located along the border of Kisumu and Kericho counties, which tragically resulted in the 3 fatalities. In the statement, the committee should address the following. 1, the causes, timelines, and impacts of the clashes, including the number of casualties, extent of property destruction, displacement of residents, and any historical disputes or boundary ambiguities contributing to tensions in the Sondu area. Second, the immediate security interventions undertaken to restore calm, including the deployment of law enforcement personnel, coordination between the national and county governments, and efforts to prevent further escalation. Third, the role of local traders, elders, and peace committees in conflict and mediation, and assessment of the effectiveness of existing peace accords and community-based resolution mechanisms. Fourth, the long-term strategies being implemented to ensure sustainable peace and development in the region, outlining community engagement initiatives, infrastructure investment, and social economic programs to address root causes of conflict. Fifth, the measures in place to ensure accountability for those responsible for the violence, including investigations, arrests, prosecutions, and steps taken to break the cycle of impunity in the region. On the third statement, Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources regarding the establishment and conservation of wildlife corridors with a specific focus on Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, the rapid urbanization and agricultural expansion have increasingly encroached upon key ecological zones, threatening species such as hippos, impalas, and over 115 bird species found in the Kisumu Impala Sanctuary. Additionally, human-wildlife conflicts, particularly around Lake Victoria, pose risks to both local communities and wildlife populations, given that Kenya's tourism sector contributes approximately to 10% of the GDP and provides over 1.8 million jobs. Safeguarding these corridors is crucial for maintaining ecological balance and sustaining economic benefits. In the statement, the committee should address the following. 1. Existing and proposed wildlife corridors in Kisumu County, their significance in conservation and biodiversity protection, and the role of Kenya Wildlife Service, which is KWS, and county authorities in their management, and the level of funding and resources allocated by both national and county governments for their development and long-term sustainability. Second, the impact of human settlements, infrastructural projects, and agricultural expansion on wildlife movements and ecological balance in the region. Third, measures put in place to mitigate human-wildlife conflicts, particularly in areas where the wildlife corridors intersect with community settlements. Fourth, the government efforts to secure land for conservation and any plans to encourage local communities in core management strategies. Fifth, data on wildlife species affected by the habitat fragmentation in Kisumu County and the conservation strategies being implemented for their protection. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request for a statement on the scheme of service for chiefs and assistant chiefs. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations concerning the scheme of service for national government administrative officers, specifically chiefs and assistant chiefs. In the statement, the committee should address the following. The scheme of service currently guiding the recruitment, promotion, and career progression of chiefs and assistant chiefs, including when it was last reviewed or updated. 2, the criteria used for hiring and promoting chiefs and assistant chiefs, including the entry-level job group, highest attainable job group within the ranks, and the minimum and maximum duration an officer stays within a job group before promotion. 3, the breakdown of emoluments received by chiefs and assistant chiefs, including but not limited to basic salary, housing allowance, transport allowance, extraneous allowance, and annual salary increments. And 4, the existing gaps and reforms needed in the current scheme of service to address stagnation in career progression and improve motivation and retention among these officers. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Majority Leader. The Majority Leader.
Statement by the Senate Majority Leader on the business of the Senate for the week commencing 8th of April 2025 at Tuesday, pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to the Standing Order 57-1, I hereby present the business for the week commencing 8th of April, 2025, Tuesday. Before I proceed, Mr. Speaker, with the statement, I take this opportunity to welcome honorable senators back from the short recess. I hope honorable senators took the time to rest, spend time with family and friends, those ones who have, reconnect with constituents, and rejuvenate themselves for part 2 of the 4th session. As honorable senators will recall, on 27th March 2025, Thursday, the Senate held a special sitting during which motions on the adoption of the reports of the County Public Accounts Committee and County Public Investments Committee and special funds were considered and approved. Additionally, the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bill number 1 of 2025, was considered and passed at the second reading stage. I take this opportunity to thank honorable senators for availing themselves for the special sitting and for their dedication to the work we were able to accomplish. Mr. Speaker, the status of the legislative business pending before the Senate is as follows: 51 bills, which 42 of them are at the second reading stage and 17 are at the committee of the whole stage. 33 motions are pending conclusion. 26 petitions, Mr. Speaker, are pending conclusion, out of which 18 are due for reporting by the respective standing committees. 568 statements pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 are under consideration by committees. As honorable senators will recall, during yesterday's afternoon sitting, Wednesday, 2nd April 2025, the Speaker gave directives concerning the processing of statements. In this regard, I implore honorable senators to adhere to the provisions of Standing Order number 55 when making a request for a statement. On Tuesday, 8th April 2025, the Senate Business Committee will meet to consider the business for the week. The tentative business for that day will include business not concluded from today's order paper, as well as the business indicated in the notice paper. The tentative business for the morning sitting on Wednesday, 9th April 2025, will include schedule of questions to Cabinet Secretaries as approved by the Senate Business Committee, as well as motions. The questions scheduled include question to the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry by Senator James Murango, MP. Question to the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning by Senator Enoch Wambua, CBS, MP. Question to the Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Economic Planning by James Murango, MP. Question to Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning by Senator Professor Thomas Ojenda, Senior Counsel, MP. Question to Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transportation by Senator Mohammed Chute, MP. Question to the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transportation by James Murango, and with the same Secretary, question by Professor Tom Ojenda, Senior Counsel, MP, and similarly to the same question to the same Cabinet Secretary, question by Senator Maanzo, EBS, MP. And finally, question to the same Secretary by Senator Fatuma Dulo, CBS, MP. Mr. Speaker, The tentative business for the afternoon sitting on Wednesday 9th, April 2025 will include business note concluded from the order paper for April 8th, Tuesday 2025, and also cover the following. Bills as a second reading stage. The county government's state officers removal from office procedure bill, the creative economy support bill, the county government's amendment bill, the labor migration and management bill, the street naming and property addressing systems bill. Also included will be business at the committee of the whole, namely the early childhood education bill, the local content bill, the street wonders bill, the county public finance laws bill, the cooperative societies bill, the public fundraising appeals bill, the heritage and museums bill, the county library services and the county library services bill. The projected business for Tuesday, 10th of April, 2025 will include, Mr. Speaker, business not conducted on the order paper for 9th of April 2025, Wednesday, and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, I do thank you and hereby lay this statement on the table of the House.
Now, honorable senators, I will allow comments for not more than 15 minutes on the statements that have been requested. Senator Fernandi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. My statement is concerning, the Senator for Taita Taveta on the issue of scheme of service for national government administration officers, especially chiefs and assistant chiefs. Mr. Speaker, I would have wished that the Senator would have added also the scheme of service of Nyumba Kumi and village elders. But I think these are the issues that we can discuss when the minister appears before the committee, Mr. Speaker, sir. Because chiefs and assistant chiefs, Mr. Speaker, are over-glorified social workers. Everything that happens in the village at location and sub-location level, we always depend on the chiefs, Mr. Speaker. They undergo, I have seen even chiefs in North Rift, in Baringo, the chiefs are becoming easy target of criminals and bandits in that region. Anywhere you go, chiefs are becoming easy targets of criminal attacks, Mr. Speaker, and even bandits. And therefore, they must be protected at all costs. And schemes of service, Mr. Speaker, must be provided to them so that they can discharge their duties without fear or favor or being easy targets of criminals and bandits, Mr. Speaker. So I think, Mr. Speaker, with the amendment of the law, now I am happy that the assistant chiefs and chiefs have been assigned the administration police officers for easy enforcement. I see people going to see chiefs for marital problems, land issues, cultural differences, and they normally are present, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, and finally, is we need to look also about the Nyumba Kumi, because they assist us in ensuring that there is peace. I remember the other day, was it Kuala or Kilifi, that they were machete-wielding criminal gangs. Many areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to request to write on this statement the issue of village elders. We must include them, Mr. Speaker. This issue of giving them stipend is not enough. Mr. Speaker, the village elders are very critical. And I want to appeal to the Ministry of Interior that they should not, Mr. Speaker, include academic qualification. Mr. Speaker, village elders are enough the way they are. You don't need to give the academic qualification they need to have is to understand the cultural norms and behavior of a community. Because most of the time, the village elders have become the cornerstone of rule of law and order within the community, Mr. Speaker. So the village elders, we don't even need to know whether they went to school or not. If you want to become a village elder in Wambua, Senator Wambua's village, are you above 40 years? Are you married, Mr. Speaker? Do you understand the local culture of the place, Mr. Speaker? And they give you the job and they're being paid, Mr. Speaker. This issue of telling village elders that they need to have academic qualifications is that in this country we have brilliant fools, Mr. Speaker. There are many brilliant fools in this country that cannot do even a quarter of what our village elders are doing, Mr. Speaker. So the issue of stipend to village elders, we should make it a salary, give them office, give them the peck and call of administration police to ensure they enforce, Mr. Speaker, on issues of marital issues, the issues of cultural differences, and the issues of assisting and tracking of criminals within our society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those very remarks, I support this statement and hope to see that the scheme of service of assistant chiefs, village elders, and Nyumba Kumi are well factored in for the protection of societal order within our villages, locations, and even within our counties. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Wambua, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to make comments on the statement brought by the Senator for Taita Taveta on the scheme of service for chiefs and assistant chiefs. The Speaker, just to add something small, that the Speaker, the service provided by these administrators at the local level, the Speaker, is so crucial that in fact an assistant chief plays the role of judge, they play the role of family counselors, they play the role of administrators and arbitrators. The Speaker, the service that they offer is so critical that there is need for a proper scheme of service, complete with clarity, Mr. Speaker, on career progression path. Especially, Mr. Speaker, someone can begin as a village elder, as an assistant chief, and aspire to go through the administrative ladder and even one day become a regional commissioner. That, Mr. Speaker, that progression must be so clear that the people that grow in the system are people who understand how the system works. The Speaker, on the matter that Senator Cherargei has brought to the floor on village elders, I don't agree with Senator Cherargei on a number of things, on a lot of things actually. But on this one, the Speaker, I agree with him. The Speaker, village elders, let us not even make the service of village elders too academic, or too elitist. Why do you need a university degree to be able to resolve small little village issues, Mr. Speaker? The best qualification for a village elder is a person who is mature enough to understand the challenges of the village and who is known within the village, who knows the boundaries of the village, who knows relationships within the families in the village, the culture of the village. We shouldn't make these things too academic, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, you're going to have a situation where everything that we do, even now, is just saying that the people who work in our farms must have degrees in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, let us just be realistic. Where the rubber meets the road in the villages, let us have mature men and women who can arbitrate on issues, people understand the issues in their villages. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to laud the Senator of Taita Taveta. The issue of the role of chiefs is truly misunderstood. Chiefs and assistant chiefs, Mr. Speaker, are very important. You do not have to ask. The moment you enter Magarini like this and you meet an assistant chief, their discipline, their demeanor, their grasp of local issues is always congruent to what I find in Luahaha, in Bungoma, Mr. Speaker. What is lacking, Mr. Speaker, is the national appreciation of their work. Mr. Speaker, look at the critical area of alternative resolution of disputes. Chiefs and assistant chiefs are the only ones who are not corrupt in that court. They are able to preside over serious issues, including land issues, and they settle those things amicably without having to be corrupted. but allowed to go through the normal legal process, families will spend their years without end, waste hundreds of thousands of shillings, and no resolution of the dispute will come, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to add that we have to have clear distinction between the chiefs and their roles and the new look police stations. There are now so many police stations in villages. So the police will ask the assistant chief to go and arrest criminals. And the chiefs and assistant chiefs, they risk their lives because some of these criminals are violent people. And when they hand them over at the police station, the OCS then creates a kangaroo court and releases the same criminals. The criminals go back to the village, they attack the assistant chief and the chief. We need to protect these people, and this protection, Mr. Speaker, should appreciate that they also need medical cover. Mr. Speaker, our chiefs require to be trained and be formally be armed by firearms for their own protection and their facilitation to carry out their duties. And finally, most governors across the country have created a parallel administrative unit. Some call it village administrators, whatever they call them. We need to harmonize between the two levels of government so that there's no clashing. Sometimes you go to public functions and you hear the chief being contradicted by the community area administrator from a county government. I support this very important statement.
Senator Fake, 3 minutes.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa iliyoletwa na Senator Mwarumo. Mheshimiwa Spika, kazi inayofanywa na machifu na wazee wa mitaa ni kazi muhimu sana katika nchi yetu, na kwa hakika wanafanya kazi ngumu. Kwa mfano kule Mombasa, kuna mzee wa mtaa alipigwa risasi na akauliwa na majambazi ambao walikuwa ni wanahusiana na ugaidi, yani Al-Shabaab, na familia ikaondoka patupu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na ni muhimu kwa zile kazi wanazofanya, kwa sababu mambo mengine ambayo yanapelekwa kwa polisi yanaenda mahakamani inachukua muda mrefu kutatuliwa kuliko yale ambayo yanazungumzwa kwa chifu na kwa kupitia wazee ambao wanakaa kwa chifu kutatuliwa, hususan masuala ya kijamii kama vile ugomvi kati ya bibi na bwana nyumbani. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa ni watu muhimu sana, na hivi sasa kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa kazi, Mheshimiwa Spika, baadhi ya machifu ambao wanaajiriwa wamefika mpaka chuo kikuu na wana shahada ya degree katika masomo au katika taaluma mbalimbali ambazo wamesomea, lakini kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa kazi wanaendelea kuwa wanafanya kazi ya chief. Kwa hivyo ni muhimu sana kwa jamii kuwatambua watu hawa na umuhimu wao katika jamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, zamani hata wanafunzi wa university ilikuwa wakifukuzwa lazima wakaripoti kwa chief, na japokuwa chief hakusoma lakini lazima uripoti kwake ndio uone ile authority ama umuhimu wa kazi ya chief. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni lazima watu hawa tamu zao za kazi ziweze kuboreshwa ili wanapofanya kazi na majukumu ambao wamepewa, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanaweza kuyafanya kwa kuzingatia kwamba kazi yao inatambulika. Hivi sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, majuzi Waziri Murkomen alitoa agizo kwamba iwapo kutapatikana pombe haramu katika eneo fulani, chifu yule atapoteza kazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo sio njia ya kuweza kuwashajaisha machifu kufanya kazi. Wanafanya kazi muhimu, kwa hivyo kazi yao lazima itambuliwe, na vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, waweze kulipwa mshahara ambao utazingatia zile kazi na changamoto wanazozipata katika kazi zao. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Nderitu.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa iliyoletwa na Senator Jonas Mwaruma. Bwana Spika, ni vizuri julikane wazi kwamba machifu pamoja na naibu wa machifu wana kazi muhimu wanayofanya sana, Bwana Spika. Ikumbukwe kwamba hawa manaibu wa chifu ndio wanashughulikia mambo ya usalama pamoja na wazee wa mitaani. Bwana Spika, ukitembea kama Laikipia unapata machifu wengi kwa sababu wao ndio wanahusika sana mambo ya usalama. Unapata mfano ukienda mahali panaitwa Doldor, kumeuawa chifu kwa sababu yeye ndio anahusika. Ng'ombe wanapoibiwa wao ndio wako katika mstari wa mbele kufuata, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo wanapaswa washughulikiwe. Unapata anatumia pikipiki yake ambayo hajapewa na serikali, anatumia mafuta yake, ilhali Bwana Spika yule chifu anatumia hela zake na hawezi kupewa fidia na serikali, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo taarifa hii imeletwa na inasema kwamba kuongezwa kwa mamlaka ama madaraka, Bwana Spika, unapata ya kwamba haifuati ule mfululizo wa masomo walionayo, Bwana Spika. Unapata wengi wao akiwa ni naibu chief, ameajiriwa akiwa naibu chief, atastaafu akiwa naibu chief, Bwana Spika, hawezi kufika kiwango kingine, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri kuangaliwe kazi anayofanya. Bwana Spika, kitambo kidogo manaibu wa chifu na chifu walikuwa wamepewa askari wako na askari pale, atatumiwa wale askari ikiwa anataka kufuata wezi, ikiwa anataka wale ambao wagema ambao anatengeneza pombe, unapata anaenda na wale askari. Lakini kwa wakati huu, Bwana Spika, huyu chifu hana mlinzi yoyote. Yeye ni kama mwananchi wa kawaida. Kile ako nacho pengine ni ile sare ya maafisa wa usalama, lakini hana chochote kingine, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo yeye ni kama mwananchi wa kawaida. Kwa hivyo haya mapendekezo yakipelekwa katika kamati, kunapaswa kuletwa mapendekezo ambayo itasema hata chifu anapaswa warejeshewe wale maafisa wao, ama kama sio hivyo, Bwana Spika, yule chifu aweze kupewa bunduki, kwa sababu wanatumika vizuri, sio tu kwa mambo ya usalama. Hata wakati wanafunzi, nakumbuka tulipokuwa pale chuoni, kila wakati ukitaka kujaza kama ni basari, unaenda unauliza, kwa sababu anajua kila mwanafunzi, kila mzazi katika sehemu yake ataweza kupatiana kwa ufasaha ni nani huyu, ama wao ni maskini ama ni mtu aina gani, ndio aweze kujulikana vizuri, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo hiyo taarifa iliyoletwa nataka kuiunga mkono na kumwambia Jonas Maruma na kamati ambayo
sana, kwa sababu machifu na maassistant chief ni watu wa muhimu sana kwa kila eneo. Kwa sababu utapata hata serikali ikitaka ulinzi, kwa sababu wanafichua njama ambazo ni za watu waofu na ambao wanaweza kuwarudia na kuwaumiza. Kwa hivyo wanaweka maisha yao hatarini wanapo chifu hawezi kufanya kazi vizuri bila wazee wa vijiji wa nyumba 10, na hao ndio wanafichua kule, wanapandishwa cheo kulingana na wakati uliowekwa, ama kuwe na wakati ambao umewekwa hao machifu na manaibu wao kupandishwa cheo. Nao pia wazee wa nyumba 10, Bwana Spika, ningeomba pia kamiti inapoenda kuangalia hii waone hao wazee pia wanalipwa, maana hao wazee huamshwa usiku wa manane, wanaenda pahali kuna mgonjwa, kuna uhalifu, na hata hawaogopi na hawapatiwi chochote na serikali. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri hata hao wazee wa nyumba 10 wawe wanalipwa, ama wanapatiwa hata transport ya kwenda kule ambao wanaenda kuangalia. Utapata hata polisi kufanya kazi vizuri kwenye station zao. inabidi watumie machifu na manaibu wao na pia wazee wa nyumba 10 ili wapate ripoti za wale wahalifu pahali wako, na pia hawa wanawasaidia pia kuwapatia hiyo information yote. Asante sana Bwana Spika, ninaunga mkono kabisa na nitaendelea kuiunga. Asante.
Senator Wakele.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to appreciate the Honorable Senator Maruma for bringing out such a very important aspect of the national administration. The position of an assistant chief and chief is, Mr. Speaker, the lowest level of administration in the national government. And the proposal that this particular statement is seeking to have scheme of service for national government administrative officers is something that should have been done a while back. Mr. Speaker, this is a team of men and women who run our affairs as a nation at the lowest level of administration. They are the people who deal with each and every case before it gets to the police station, before it gets to court, before it gets to any other baraza that deals with it. They are the first point of call when there is a problem in any family, in any society. Mr. Speaker, having a scheme of service for these chiefs and assistant chiefs will help them in so many ways, one of which is very critical, Mr. Speaker, is to motivate them to know that you grow in the system. Having been employed in as an assistant chief, you have an opportunity to have your career progress when there is a scheme of service. Failure to have such a thing, definitely, Mr. Speaker, will always discourage them from performing their role. We have had sessions, Mr. Speaker, with a number of these people. Over the weekend, I can confirm that I had a session with a number of them who, besides them operating without resources and without offices, most of them would operate from their homes. These are people who receive all kinds of problems and they are expected to deal with. Having a scheme of service, having them in a structured kind of an arrangement that they know, I get into office within a period of 3 years, I will have moved to the next level, will have them supported so that they deliver to the people that they represent. Mr. Speaker, this, as I've said, being the team that is also supporting the government in most of the public participations that we conduct, the people who convene these meetings, the people who calls upon the residents to participate are the area chiefs and assistant chiefs. Without them, Mr. Speaker, I am very sure we are unable to reach out to the people who are more important than those who are in white-collar places in their offices. And so I will call upon the committee that will be given this particular statement to deal with to go beyond the scheme of service and ensure that part of what they'll come out and up with is also an aspect that deals with the operationalization of a number of administrative units which have been gazetted across. I know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, that in my county, we've got over 100 administrative units that have been gazetted but has not been operationalized. I want to ask that this committee goes beyond this aspect on their scheme of service and ensure that they support them so that they are able to do the job of that chief and assistant chief, which supports the national government in helping the residents that are looking up to them. Mr. Speaker, I support and ask that this report, or rather this statement, be expedited because it is very, very important. I thank you.
Now, Honorable Senators, we have expended the 15 minutes on this interrogating these statements. We will therefore move to the next order. Clerk.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Persons with Disabilities Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2023. Resumption of debate interrupted. On question to be put.
Now, Honorable Senator, this is a matter that does not affect counties, and therefore voting shall be by voice. Clerk, do we have the requisite quorum before I put the question? We do? All right. So, honorable members, I'll proceed to put the question. that the National Assembly amendments to the Persons with Disabilities Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2023, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 10 of 2024, resumption of debate, division. Order number 10, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, division.
Now, honorable senators, we have, if you look at order number 11, 12, 13, and 14 to 15, there's a committee of the whole. Now, I do not see Senator Crystal Asige. I see Senator Edwin Sifuna. I don't see the majority leader who is supposed to handle 14, 15, and 13. I will therefore wish to defer the committee of the whole for now. We move to order number 16, which is the extension of the time of the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as the chairperson and members of IEBC. Proceed to call that order.
Motion, extension of time to the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as a chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the following motion. The motion being extension of time for the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as chairperson and members of the Independent Boundaries Commission. Mr. Speaker, aware that via Gazette Notice numbers 1901 and 2643, dated 14th of February 2023 and 1st of March 23, respectively, His Excellency the President declared one vacancy for the position of chairperson for IEBC and 6 vacancies for members of IEBC, further aware that via Gazette Notice number 715 of 27 January 2025, His Excellency the President appointed members of the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as chairperson and members of the IEBC, and noting that upon its appointment, the selection panel commenced the recruitment process and long-listed all applicants and subsequently shortlisted qualified applicants for the positions of chairperson and member of the IEBC. Further, noting that paragraph 6.1 of the first schedule to the IEBC Act, Cap 7C, provides that the selection panel shall finalize the recruitment exercise within 90 days of its appointment and forward the names of the nominees to the President. And conscious, Mr. Speaker, that the selection panel is currently undertaking the interviews of the shortlisted candidates for the position of chairperson and members of the IEBC, and that given the interview schedule of all shortlisted applicants, the selection panel has inadequate time to conclude the recruitment process. Conscious, Mr. Speaker, that the selection panel is currently undertaking the interviews of the shortlisted candidates of the positions of chairperson and members of the IEBC, and that given the interview schedule of all candidates applicants, the selection panel has inadequate time to conclude the process. Furthermore, conscious of the need for the selection panel to ensure that the recruitment process complies with the constitutional principles of regional balance, representation of the youth, and overall inclusivity, while ensuring that the interviews are conducted as far as practical within official working days and hours. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of paragraph 6.2 of the first schedule of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act, Cap 7C, the Houses of Parliament hereby resolve to extend the tenure of the selection panel for recruitment of persons for appointment as persons, chairpersons, and members of the IEBC Commission by a period of 14 days from 28th of April 2025. Mr. Speaker, by merely reading the motion, I've literally explained the reasons behind this particular request. Mr. Speaker, it boils down to the question of time. We've all been witnessing the interviews. They have been nice to watch. And Mr. Speaker, knowing the critical role and the centrality of the IEBC, these 14 days would not be too much to bear. Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to the House that we agree with them on their request, and also point out to the House that our sister House has been able to sit on this matter, and they have granted them this request. So it would be useful, Mr. Speaker, although that statement doesn't sit very well with the leadership of Kitui, but the Constitution of Kenya recognizes the fact that the two houses, if they don't work in congruence, then Parliament has not spoken. On this one, Parliament must speak. I therefore want to request colleagues, but as I do so, I would like to sound a warning to the members of the selection panel that constitutional timelines that were envisaged were not born out of guesswork. People with the necessary competences did the timing and knew that within 90 days, this is doable. Sometimes we get worried, but because we are of our oversight role in expenditure of public funds, I want to warn members of the selection panel that if you are extending merely for purposes of having more days from which you can draw an earning, then, Mr. Speaker, that is not normal. The national cake is too small for us to waste. Mr. Speaker, I have looked at some of the interviewees. They have given very good, they have discharged themselves very well. And I hope that through this process, we are going to get not just the chairman, but, Mr. Speaker, the best chairman that we should have gotten. For members who will have find it difficult to extend these days, may I beg you, we have 5 constituencies in Kenya today that do not have representation. In fact, those guys of the selection panel needed to raise to that challenge. You all know our colleague, the late Senator William Chiptumo, left us. The people of Baringo would like an opportunity to replace him. Back home in Malaba constituency, we lost our Member of Parliament, the Honorable Malulu Njendi, Moses. People of Malaba would like to have him replaced. Not to mention Banisa constituency, where my good friend Hassan Maalim was hit in a freak accident. He was knocked by a border and he lost his life. Mr. Speaker, it has taken so long. I remember Maalim taught me one thing. He was much younger than me, probably a first-timer, but he taught me that in politics, if you like somebody, don't like him 100%, like him 50%, because they can disappoint you. Mr. Speaker, the people of Magarini, back home in your place, the Member of Parliament was asked to go back to the people and legitimize his election because of the finding of the petition court. Many wards, in fact, 7 of them, are waiting for this particular decision to be made. It includes Nyamaia Ward in Nyamira constituency, Mumbuni North Ward in Machakos County, in Narok Town, in Narok County, yes? Angata Najek Ward in Sampuru County, Jewani in Tana River County, and Dela Ward in Wajir County. Mr. Speaker, as if that is not enough, it must not be lost on us that we have the pending issue of the review of electoral boundaries and delimitation. I therefore move the motion and request my brother, the leader of the minority, to second me. And as I do so, our colleagues on the minority side, please bear with us. We did not do the proper consultation with you to bring you on board. I am apologizing on behalf of the majority. It is the nature in which this matter was brought before us, but life goes on. So let's put that one aside and hopefully see this matter, which is procedural, through. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ulikuwa hujaniita lakini mimi nimechukua nafasi hiyo kwa sababu ulikuwa ongea na dadangu, nikasema ni sawa, acha nitaendelea.
The mover, it is the mover who is supposed to request you to second. If the mover has done,
yeah.
Have you been requested to second?
Yes.
Then proceed. You don't need my nod in that regard.
Bwana Spika, kawaida lazima utasema sasa tutamtaja mtu jina kama ilivyo kawaida, lakini wacha tuendelee Bwana Spika.
Senator wa Kilifi,
sawa.
Senator Mazao,
nishakuelewa Bwana Spika, asante.
Ni wako, endelea.
Bwana Spika, kwanza nataka kuunga mkono hii hoja ya kuongeza muda kwa ile panel inaofanya interview, kuchagua wale wenzetu ama watu ambao watakuwa makomishna. Panel hii Bwana Spika, ama jopo hili Bwana Spika unaloliona liko na kazi nyingi sana, na kazi nyingi kwa sababu ilikuwa imepewa muda kulinganishana na katiba, lakini ule muda unaonekana sasa umeyoyoma sana, na bado wale watu ambao wanafanyiwa interview bado wakilikuja, na vile vile muda utaendelea kuyoyoma. Kwa hiyo ni jambo ambalo wameliona kwamba muda ukifika watakuwa hawajakamilisha, na ndio sababu wameweza kuomba muda waongezewe wa siku 14. Bwana Spika, sababu walizosema ni kwamba hawakutarajia kitendo kama hichi kinaweza kutendeka, wakitumaini ya kwamba wanaweza kumaliza muda wa kawaida ili Wakenya waweze kupata hili jopo la kusimamia mambo ya kura katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Bwana Spika, kitu ambacho mimi nataka kusisitiza kwamba ni muhimu, tunataka kama Wakenya tupate kazi ambayo iko safi. Tunataka kuona katika Kenya kwamba wale watu watakaochaguliwa watakuwa ni watu ambao wanaweza kutimiza wajibu wa ile kazi ambayo wamechaguliwa. Vile vile, Bwana Spika, tunajua kwamba katika wale watu ambao wanakuwa interviewed, Bwana Spika, ni watu wanatoka sehemu mbalimbali za Kenya. Na hii si kazi ambao unaweza kuketi tu na ukachukua watu. Tunataka kuona katika muda wanaosema wanaohitaji ili kuweza kumaliza ile kazi, ni kwamba kazi hii wachukue watu kutoka pande zote katika Kenya. Bwana Spika, ni jambo kubwa ama jambo ambalo liko na mzigo mkubwa katika muda huu ambao wameuuliza. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kuunga mkono ya kwamba katika zile siku 14 ambazo wameziuliza, na ikiwa wamemaliza tayari zile siku zao karibu kumaliza siku 90 kulinganishana na ule muda ambao walipewa, ninaona ni sawa kabisa tuwapatie ule muda. Bwana Spika, tunajua kwamba hivi sasa Wakenya wamemaliza muda mrefu sana, wamekaa bila kuwa na jopo ambalo linaweza kusimamia mambo ya kura na vile vile mambo ya mipaka ya constituencies katika Kenya. Bwana Spika, si kazi rahisi, na hii imefanya kwamba muda huu wote ambao hatukuweza kuchagua hawa watu, imekuwa vigumu sana kuweza kupata wabunge katika sehemu mbalimbali za Kenya ambao wameweza kupoteza wabunge wao, mimi nikiwa mmoja wao. Bwana Spika, hivi tunavyoongea, eneo bunge langu katika Kilifi County la Magarini, tuliweza kuna mwenzetu aliweza kufanya petition na kufaulu, na hatimaye tukaweza kumpoteza mbunge wetu pale, ndugu yetu Mheshimiwa Harrison Kombe. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, katika huu muda ambao watu wa Magarini wameketi, ni muda mrefu zaidi kuweza kuketi nyumbani na kuweza kuona ya kwamba mambo mengi yanatendeka katika nchi, ilhali wao wenyewe walienda asubuhi na kupiga kura kuweza kupata kiongozi, na hivi sasa kiongozi wao alitolewa na koti, na hatimaye hivi sasa atarudi tena katika ule ukingo wa zile mashindano ili aweze kuchukua kiti chake tena. Kwa hiyo tunasema ya kwamba ingekuwa nafasi nzuri tukiweza kuwapatia hawa nafasi ili waweze kumaliza, alafu tupate wale makomishona waingie katika ofisi yao, ili wakishaingia ndani sasa eneo la Magarini nao lianze kujitayarisha ili kupata mbunge. Na tuna matumaini, nayo matumaini makubwa ya kwamba ndugu yangu Harrison Kombe, Mheshimiwa Harrison Kombe, ataweza kuchukua nafasi hiyo. Bwana Spika, bila kuchukua wakati muda mrefu, naunga mkono hoja hii. Kama kijana kama Cherargei anaongea pale na mimi naongea, si haki. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono hoja hii kwa dhati. Asante Bwana Spika.
Honorable Senators, I will now propose the question. That are aware that via Gazette notices number 1901 and 2643 dated the 14th of February 2023 and 1st of March 2023 respectively, His Excellency the President declared one vacancy for the position of the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, and 6 vacancies for the position of members of the IEBC. Further, aware that via Gazette Notice number 715 of 27th of January 2025, His Excellency the President appointed members of the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as the chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, noting that upon its appointment, the selection panel commenced the recruitment process and long-listed all applicants and subsequently shortlisted qualified applicants for the positions of chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Further, noting that paragraph 6.1 of the first schedule to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act, Cap 7C, provides that the selection panel shall finalize the recruitment exercise within 90 days of its appointment and forward the names of nominees to the President. Conscious that the selection panel is currently undertaking the interviews of the shortlisted candidates for the positions of chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and that given the interview schedule of all shortlisted applicants, the selection panel has inadequate time to conclude the recruitment process. Further, conscious of the need for the selection panel to ensure the recruitment process complies with the constitutional principles of regional balance, representation of the youth, and overall inclusivity, while ensuring that the interviews are conducted as far as practicable within official working days and hours. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of paragraph 6.2 of the first schedule to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act, Cap 7C, the Houses of Parliament resolved to extend the tenure of the selection panel for recruitment of persons for appointment as chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission by a period of 14 days from the 28th of April 2025. Commission by a period of 14 days from the 28th of April 2025. Now, Honorable Senators, the floor is open for debate. This is a procedural motion. You may want to debate this motion. If you're in agreement, I may proceed straight away to put the question. That is, okay, I'm getting the indication that you'd wish to debate this motion, however, with limitation of time on each member contributing to 5 minutes. Very well. Senator Wakili.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to first Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to support this motion. And I want to thank the Majority Whip for moving the motion and running the House through part of what is very critical in terms of supporting this motion and why is it that we must support. Madam Speaker, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is a constitutional commission that actually sets up this House. All the members sitting in this House would not have been here if it didn't exist an Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. It is the commission that oversees elections of all positions, Madam Speaker, from the presidency to the member of county assembly. And so this is a very important commission that, as we debate on this motion, we appreciate the importance of this commission. We equally appreciate the reasons as to why we do not have a commission as at now, and the need to fast track whatever process that is going on to set up a commission that will now undertake the elections. The mover of this motion, Madam Speaker, has taken us through a number of constituencies, counties, and county assemblies that do not have representation. And Madam Speaker, remember, representation in either the National Assembly, the Senate, or in county assembly is a constitutional right to the people from such places or constituencies or wards where they do not have. And therefore, the request by the selection panel for an additional 14-day period in the circumstances, Madam Speaker, is not reasonable, and that forms the basis as to why I am supporting the motion. We are aware that they have been conducting interviews. They have closed on the interviews for the position of the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission. We have watched with a lot of expectation the candidates who've been subjected to the interview, and I believe one of the reasons as to why this committee is asking for more time is to facilitate them to have sufficient time to take through the candidates that will be interviewed in order for them to get the best out of those who have applied. Madam Speaker, remember the list that was published of the applicants to these various positions, from that of the chairperson to that of commissioners, has not been exhausted. It will be unfair, Madam Speaker, to rush through the interview process or the candidates, and will actually even be more unfair, because if more time was taken to interview those who were being interviewed for the position of chair, sufficient time should be allowed for those who are going to be interviewed for the members of the commission. And asking for 14 days, Madam Speaker, in the circumstances is not reasonable, and this House, I beseech members to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, the very many constituencies, wards, and counties, and one county actually where our former colleague, the late Senator Cheptumo, represent the county of Baringo, are looking forward to electing a replacement of these members, and it can only happen when there is an Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in place. I know that despite the fact that we are asking for these elections to be conducted immediately, it cannot happen unless we have this commission in place. Madam Speaker, there is also the issue on the boundaries review. And remember, we are mid-term, the tenure of this current term. There is need for preparation. There is need for a number of legislations, which is the mandate of this House, but much of it would originate from reports and recommendations that would come from this body called IEBC, and hence the importance of the Commission. Madam Speaker, in all those that we require of them to do, I support the request for 14 days, but I also want to urge the members of the Commission that they should not look at 14 days to be a lot of days, because you might end up getting the 14 days, but failed to manage the process that you will be conducting the interviews, and I do not expect them to come back to this House for additional time, for the obvious reasons that, Madam Speaker, we want to minimize on resources that is being utilized in the process of these particular interviews. There is a secretariat that is funded by the taxpayer. There is the taxpayer herself or himself that's looking forward and waiting for a commission to be put in place for by-elections to be conducted, and I want to encourage them to properly utilize the time that they have asked for extension, if this motion will pass, to make sure that they conclude the process for the people of Kenya to have a functional Independent Electoral Commission that will prepare towards the 2027 election, and that will give them time enough to be ready to process whatever they need to process, and to make sure that they represent the interest of the people of Kenya in what they'll be doing. Madam Speaker, I therefore support and ask the honorable members to equally support this particular important motion. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Madam Speaker, from the word go, I must go on record and say that the majority leader of the Senate must do a better job at consulting the other side of the House on matters that are cross-cutting. I would want to listen to Senator Sifuna if he gets an opportunity to contribute to this motion, whether actually what our sister coalition partner, ODM, signed an MOU with UDA, whether that extended to this kind of arrangement where the majority leader can just ambush one side of the House with a motion as important as this. But as Speaker, having said that, I have read through this motion. I've listened to the majority whip moving the motion. I listened to my boss, the minority leader, seconding the motion. I've listened to Senator Sigay contributing to this motion. Madam Speaker, I am asking myself the big question, why should I support this motion? The reasons given here are not convincing. The moving notes by the whip, in fact, if I was to go by the contribution of the whip, we should all just defeat this motion. Because he says the only reason why we should support this motion is because the National Assembly has already passed the motion. Madam Speaker, that can never be the reason why we are passing this motion. I have listened to my boss, respectively, and he has said that the panel just, realized that they could not undertake the task in front of them, and now for that reason, let us give them time to finish the work before them. Madam Speaker, I will say three things. One, it is this panel that shortlisted the candidates for interview. And when they were doing it, they knew the time that they have for the interviews. Now, Speaker, there is a principle in management called beginning with the end in mind. And I expected that the panelists are learned enough to know, actually some of them are PhD holders. I thought that they are learned enough to understand that if you are given a piece of cloth to tailor a shirt or a suit, you do it according to the size of your cloth, Madam Speaker, the fabric that you have. You cannot shortlist 500 people and then turn back and say, we have so many people to interview, so we need more time. That is not a reason. Madam Speaker, the panel cannot wake up one day and tell us, we want to be able to operate within constitutional principles of regional balance, youth representation. Madam Speaker, even if you had only one day to interview 10 people, that the outcome of that interview must reflect the constitutional principles of regional balance and youth representation. If you have not been able to do that within 90 days, you will not be able to do it within the 14 days that you're asking for. For that reason, Madam Speaker, there is no reason here to support this motion. Madam Speaker, I keep asking myself, when these people are asking for 14 extra days, what do they expect from the people of Banissa? What do they expect from the people of Malava? What do they expect from the people of Ungunja? What do they expect from the people of Magarini, where the Speaker of the Senate comes from and the minority leader of the Senate comes from? These people have been waiting, Madam Speaker, for this panel to complete its work and get the job done, Madam Speaker.
Add him some few seconds to finish. Final phase.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the indulgence. Madam Speaker, I want to go on record that this request is actually an admission on the part of the panelists of their own incompetence, Madam Speaker, to get this job done. And it has been said, I have no proof of it, that perhaps people are just extending time to earn a little more allowances. Madam Speaker, nothing stops these people, the panelists, from sitting outside official time, Madam Speaker, past 5 p.m. I have seen us here, Madam Speaker, when we have timelines. We have sat in this house up to midnight to transact important national business. Why is it? Why is it that instead of asking for 14 days, if they need the concurrence of the House of Parliament for more time, why can't they ask, if that is necessary, to be allowed to sit overtime between 6 in the morning and midnight to transact this business? Madam Speaker, I will reserve the final comment on this matter when I hear the response that I expect to hear from Senator Sifuna on whether that document that he was there when it was being signed allows the majority leader to ambush this House with a motion as important as this. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Cherarki, you speak only when given a chance, Senator Cherarki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On a lighter note, when we were signing the partnership between ODM and UDA, I didn't see Wiper present. So I don't know why Senator Wambua is complaining. I don't know why Senator Wambua is complaining and Senator Sifuna signed religiously the partnership between UDA and ODM, and Wiper was not part of engagement. Mr. Speaker, on this issue of procedural matter, Mr. Speaker, I was just coming to the defense of Senate Minority
There is a point of order, Senator Cherarki, against Senator Sifuna.
Madam Speaker, on accuracy and statement of fact, is the Senator Fonandi in order to allege that I have signed a pact between ODM and UDA? Can he be made to substantiate? Honorable Speaker, if the Senator Fonandi can produce any document signed by Edwin Sifuna on behalf of ODM with any political party called UDA, I will resign today as a Senator of Nairobi. Let him bring it here and substantiate what he's saying. I have never signed any agreement, and I don't intend to sign any agreement as Edwin Sifuna
Senator
with
Cherarki,
the UDA party.
Can you substantiate your allegations or withdraw?
Madam Speaker, I didn't say he signed. His party leader signed, Raila Odinga.
Senator Cherarki, please.
Madam Speaker,
please
I withdraw.
Thank you.
And apologize, Madam Speaker, and also indicate that
Senator Cherarki, once you've withdrawn and apologize, proceed to make your point.
But they are shouting at me, Madam Speaker.
Order other members. Can Senator Cherarki proceed?
Sifuna is sabotaging our partnership between ODM and UDA, and it should go on record as such. Madam Speaker, I want to support this procedural motion. I was disappointed, Madam Speaker, with the selection panel. I expected very serious questions of integrity, but the selection panel of IBC are underwhelming. They have been asking kindergarten and underwhelming and pedestrian questions, Madam Speaker. And I know you are an expert. You have sat in as Director of Elections, you have participated in electoral process, and you could see that the selection panel did not know what they were doing, Madam Speaker. And therefore, it is very unfortunate. Some of us are constrained because of constitutional timelines that is there, Madam Speaker, and we are looking at the greater good of the country. That is why we are supporting. But looking at the content that the selection panel was doing to vet and interview those interviewees, it was just an exercise in futility. I have not seen serious engagement, Madam Speaker, even having people who have PhD. That is why I said in the morning or in the afternoon that we have so many brilliant fools in this country who masquerade, Madam Speaker, and do. But without start saying, because this country has to move, Madam Speaker, and in the spirit of bipartisan and broad-based, Madam Speaker, I want to appeal to Senator Wambua to support this process. Because at the end of the day, I saw his leader, with all tremendous respect, I'll not mention the name, I saw his leader, Madam Speaker, speaking about objecting the conclusion of process. Why is it that opponents of William Ruto are fearful to have IEBC in place? It is because they fear the election itself, Madam Speaker, and they must allow, Madam Speaker. Number two, Madam Speaker.
There is a point of order, Senator Cherargei. There is Senator Wambua.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, understanding order 105 on matters of facts. First of all, Madam Speaker, I don't know how His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka finds his way.
Senator Wambua, what is the point of order?
The point of order, Madam Speaker, is I want the Senator of Nandi to substantiate that Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, His Excellency, is afraid of the outcome of this process. Secondly, Madam Speaker, because you raised two issues, that, Madam Speaker, the Senator for Nandi alluded to a situation where some leaders in the opposition are afraid of one President William Samoei Ruto.
Senator Cherargei,
we want him to substantiate
can you
those statements.
Please substantiate or withdraw and let this motion continue?
Madam Speaker, the answer will bear me out because I didn't mention any name. I said his leader. Can the answer be produced, Madam Speaker, so that from there...
Senator Cherargei, in his final words, he actually said you...
Alluded.
Yes, alluded to some.
I alluded.
No, and that's why he wants you to substantiate which these opposition leaders are that are afraid.
Okay, I will bring the names, Madam Speaker, I will bring the names on Tuesday of the opposition leaders who issue a presser objecting the IBC selection panel, and ODM was not part of them.
Senator Cherargei, please withdraw or indicate which leader, because a presser...
Madam Speaker, I will bring the names of those opposition leaders next week.
Please
Tuesday.
note that and continue with the motion.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, on the issue of review and delimitation of boundaries of the constituencies, we must fast track, Madam Speaker, so that we can put in place and ensure, like for example in Nandi, I have the biggest ward called Klibwani. People would want to review, Madam Speaker. There are many others protected constituencies that needed to be relooked at because we have a number of protected constituencies that do not meet the criteria. Number two, Madam Speaker, there are so many by-elections, Magarini, Banisa, Baringo County, Malava. If Mheshimiwa Ruku succeeds, Madam Speaker, to be the CS, Madam Speaker, we will need better not by-election. Madam Speaker, so we need the IEBC to be in place to conduct by-elections. Finally, Madam Speaker, I was misquoted. I said instead of members of parliament resigning to be the cabinet secretaries, why don't we give them responsibility allowances and appoint them to cabinet so that we save the country the agony of by-election and paying double salary? Because you only need responsibility allowance, and I was misquoted, Madam Speaker. Secondly, the cost of a voter in 2022, Madam Speaker, was 2,500. The best practice is 600 shillings per voter. It means the conduct of election per voter is still very expensive in this country. And therefore, I don't see why Mheshimiwa Ruku is appointed to the cabinet. What we should do is just give him responsibility allowances, come to parliament, go back to the cabinet so that we save salaries, Madam Speaker. So I want to tell people who are misquoting me that they don't have such opportunity. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, and my time was eaten by Senator Wambua, but he's a bishop. I support this procedural motion.
Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I must begin by registering very strong protest on behalf of the minority side as to the presence of this motion on the order paper this afternoon. When I saw this motion on the order paper, I called, and the records can show,
I called the leader of majority, the Honorable Senator for Kericho, Aaron Cheriot. I was unable to reach him because we in this House have agreed that we will not transact business by ambush. It is not a surprise. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I am extremely disappointed that it is very contemptuous for you to introduce a motion in such a way, because it gives us a very difficult time in the leadership to guide our members as to how to treat this particular motion. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I protest because I don't like being made to look like a fool. Yesterday, after resolutions passed by the Central Committee of ODM, I was reading a statement saying that ODM will not countenance any further delays in the selection process of the IEBC commissioners, only to be told today that there is a motion on the order paper to extend time for this panel to do its job. And what's worse, Honorable Speaker, when I reached out to my leadership in the National Assembly, our counterparts there, they forwarded to me a letter from this panel, signed by the chair of the panel himself. The first thing I noticed, this letter was dated the 20th of March. This is 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Honorable Speaker. This House has no idea. The second problem is that that letter is addressed only to the Speaker of the National Assembly, continuing this spate of contempt for the Senate, when they knew very well that this matter has to be processed through both houses of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, it is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that we continue to be treated with such contempt. So when I go through the letter, I'm trying to find out what are the reasons. And it is clear that even the mover of this motion has no access to that request. And by the way, in that request, this panel is asking for 30 days, not 14 days. It is the National Assembly that set it at 14 days, and there is nothing that stops us as a House at setting that deadline at 4 days or 7 days or 2 days if we wanted to. And they are citing various reasons. By the way, I do not hold brief for this panel. And I have strongly objected to, I don't want to be distracted, Honorable Speaker. Strongly objected to this.
He does not want to be informed. Let him finish.
I strongly object to some of these insinuations that somehow ODM is the one running this panel. And if you read the newspapers today, you would think that there is a war between me and Senator Wambua. It is not going to happen. Me and Senator Wambua are never going to fight. But the truth of the matter is, we also do not want these incessant accusations against ODM. Honorable Speaker, if you hear the names of the constituencies by elections that are being mentioned, majority of them are held by ODM. ODM was holding Ugunja, we are holding Magarini, we have a nominee to cabinet, and there is a young man from Kajiado waiting to replace John Bad in the National Assembly. If anything, we are the ones who are suffering the greatest prejudice. Some of these political parties that you see making noise about ODM, and I have asked Senator Wambua to distance himself and his party from some of these non-entities making noise, and you know very well that they cannot field a candidate in Banisa. They are village political parties. I don't know what, Senator Wambua, you are doing with these characters. I want to dissuade you from hanging out with these people, because if you just moved a bit, you would allow me to deal with these people mundu kumundu. And they know me. And I don't want you to catch strays, as we say in the streets. Honorable Speaker, some of the reasons these people have given, they are saying that the time is too short because they shortlisted 116 people. I personally took time to watch one of those interviews. And I'm being vindicated because I said, these commissioners, the panelists, are talking too much. They like to listen to themselves. Instead of putting a question to a candidate and allowing them to talk, somebody is asking a windy, long question. And now I am being asked, after complaining that they are talking too much, they write to me to extend time so that we can listen to them more. We don't want to hear what you have to say. We want the candidates, the people who are coming to run elections, to speak so that we can know what they are all about. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to conclude and say, even if I'm inclined, even if I'm persuaded, please, the sort of contempt that is being extended to this Senate will not be allowed to go on any further. Mr. Makanda should have known that there are 2 houses of Parliament. He is a PhD holder, for heaven's sake. He should have written to our Speaker and written to the Speaker of the National Assembly on the 20th, and we would have had time to debate this motion and give him what he wants. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Korir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would want to really support the motion which is in the floor of the House. Being a procedural motion, I would also want to just speak about the procedure where I feel Honorable Senator has felt like it was an oversight to this House. The letter that was written to the Speaker of the National Assembly was written in the capacity of the Chair of the Commission, where it was supposed to be brought to the Commission, that is the committee, or one of the committees in the Commission. And then after the committee has deliberated on it, is when now it was written to the two houses. And that is why it came to this House.
There is a point of order,
Yeah,
Senator
Honorable
Korir.
Speaker.
Just sit, there is a point of order.
Okay.
Senator Mandago, you want to?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like, under statement of facts, I don't understand how the Commission is supposed to decide on what is going to be discussed in Parliament. If the Commission was to approve, then the Speaker of the National Assembly, Senator Wetangula, should just write that letter and extend.
Senator Korir, where did you get the idea that the letter was written to the Commission? No.
Give me my mic. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm talking about the procedure, where, Honorable Speaker, the letters was made after deliberation in the Commission that the two houses can now take their time and decide. It was not final that the Commission decided that let's give them the 14 days. The two houses can still decide that there is no more extension of time. But having been brought to this House, it's upon this House to either extend the 14 days or reduce even to 5 days or
Senator Korir,
deny.
The objection is to your assertion that the letter was written to the Commission and not to Parliament. If
Chair?
you're not clear, you want to withdraw that reference.
I won't withdraw, Chair, because that was the letter, unless I see the content of the letter, but I know the letter was not written to him as a speaker, but as the chair of the Commission.
Wait, there is a point of order. Senator Sifuna, please.
Please, Honorable Speaker, do not allow Commissioner Korir to mislead this House. If the law says that Parliament may extend time, you write to Parliament. Wetangula is not Parliament. Wetangula is not Parliament. I certainly don't recognize him as Parliament. He might be the chair of the PSC. He's the Speaker of the National Assembly. We have our own Speaker. If indeed, as she alleges, that was the procedure, as Senator Mandago has rightly pointed out, all Wetangula needed to do when he received the letter is to write back and tell them the PSC has said have 30 days. Why is this matter here? If she insists on that line, then we as a House should send this motion back to Speaker Wetangula, let him determine it accordance with those powers that Senator Korir says he has under the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Senator Korir, let me guide you. No, there is no point of order on another point of order. He has just explained, please. Senator, can I first deal with the point of order that has just been explained by Senator? No, that is not the procedure, and you know that. Can we deal with the first, Senator Korir, have you seen the letter that was written? You may well be advised to withdraw your reference to the Commission. No, if you've not seen the letter, the more reason why you must withdraw. I'm guiding you. Senator Munyu, Senator Kenywa?
Madam Chair, I stand...
Meantime, can the clerks please prepare to read the letter in terms of who it was written to?
Madam Chair, I want to support
Bring it to me.
The Vice Chair of the Commission. The truth of the matter is the letter can be written to the Chairman of the Commission, because many letters that are written here, Madam Chair, to this House, they're normally written to the clerk. If it's the clerk of National Assembly, if it's the clerk to the National Assembly. But on this one, Madam Chair, I know we are the one, then when I was the Commissioner, we interviewed some of the commissioner seated there. And in fact, it is the commission that pays for the sitting allowance, Madam Speaker. So I am sure as I speak, unless it has changed, and it must have changed yesterday, that the letter must have been written to the chairman of the commission as the chairman of the commission, not as the Speaker of National Assembly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senators, honorable senators, I have requested the clerk to actually get a copy of the letter. Where is the mover? I think the letter should have been attached to the motion. You can help the House. Are you able to help the House? Do you have it? Please.
Madam Speaker, because Commissioner Korir has not seen this letter, and it raises even more questions.
Senator Korir, please listen. Please.
It raises more questions than answers because I'm not a member of the commission. She is a member of the commission. In fact, she's seconded to that commission by this House. You are supposed to be the one to see these letters before we as members do. I have circulated the copy of the letter on the official Senate WhatsApp group so that everybody can be able to see it. But Madam Speaker, we are not discussing who pays the panel or who provides secretarial services for this panel. We are asking ourselves, which institution under the law has powers to extend time? And in my view, if the answer is that it is Parliament, then that request must be to Parliament. And we run a bicameral house which requires that you recognize the leadership of both houses. The Speaker of this House is not aware. In fact, it's our Speaker asking for a copy of the letter. You as a senator should be ashamed that your own leadership in this House has not seen that letter. If you are going to defend this institution, you must stop this practice where people imagine that if you write to the National Assembly, you have written to Parliament. That is not the correct position of the law, and we must defend this institution.
Senator Sifuna, do you want to make reference to the letter? Can you please just, Senator Sifuna, let him read there. I want him to read actually who is the letter addressed to Senator
Just
Sifuna.
1 minute, Honorable Speaker, because the shouting is interfering with the network on my phone. But this is the letter. I have shared it on the official Senate business group. If you don't have a network, it's because Senator Kinyo is shouting. Honorable Speaker, the reference of that letter is SP/IEBC/CORR/2025/236 from the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as chairperson and member of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. It is dated the 20th of March, 2025. It is addressed to the Right Honorable Dr. Moses F.M. Wetangula, EGH MP, Speaker of the National Assembly and Chairperson, Parliamentary Service Commission. Now, Honorable Speaker.
I think that's enough. Senator Sifuna, I think let's...
I feel like there's more education to pass.
No, it's
Thank you,
okay.
Honorable Speaker.
That information is what we are looking for. Senator Korir, can you proceed to the extent... No, it was a point of order where she was guiding the House that the letter should have gone through the Commission and the Commission to guide the House. Senator Korir, as you can see from that letter, it was written to Speaker and Chairperson of the Commission. So the letter is before the House as directed to the Speaker. Do you want to proceed?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, that was the clarity that we wanted as a House. And I also want to thank the Honorable Member because he's very thorough when it comes to the procedures. And it's clear that the letter also was copied to the Senate. So, and the reason why I'm raising this, Madam Speaker, is because...
Honorable Senators, please. It is...
No,
what is your point of order,
no, I don't
Senator
want...
Cherargei?
Is it information or order?
What is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, I raise under point of order under Article 127 on powers of Parliamentary Service Commission. One of the functions of Parliamentary Service Commission...
Can you That cannot be a point of order.
No, no, it is
that
what
you are
can-
trying to explain powers of the standing
No, I'm not explaining,
Order,
but I'm
Senator
talking
Cherargei.
about the correspondence.
So
I'm
what is
coming
your
there.
point of order?
Madam Speaker, it cannot be that Parliamentary Service Commission, the chairperson, Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula, Madam Speaker,
Senator
cannot
Cherargei.
be the correspondent of Parliament as insisted under Article 93.
Senator
We must teach
Cherargei,
him,
order,
Madam
Senator
Speaker.
Cherargei,
This is
sit
free
down.
education.
Order,
Yes.
Senator Cherargei. You are abusing that space to actually make a point you want to make. Senator Korir, proceed.
Thank you. Let me finish. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think, Honorable Speaker,
Senator Mandago.
Honorable Speaker, I think they are just wasting my time. It's just a procedure.
Please
And
save-
they have been read, the letter has been read by
Senator
Honorable.
Korir, just let him be. Senator, please save Senator Korir's time.
First,
Senator Cherargei, you listen in
Point
silence,
of order
please.
is understanding order 105, statement of facts. The letter was copied to the clerk, not the speaker. Number two, we don't waste time in this house, we debate. There's a difference between being written a letter and being copied just for information.
Senator Mandago, I overrule. She said the letter was copied to the Senate. To the clerk of the Senate actually represents the Senate. Yeah? Senator Kinyua.
Madam Speaker, in this Senate, and I want to repeat again, and I had said before, Speaker don't receive letters. Letters are sent to the clerk. And in fact, from what he has said, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, protect me from
Order, Senator
hecklers.
Cherargei, please.
Protect me
I have
from
not
these
given you
hecklers.
time to read. Senator Sifuna, I have not given you time. Please, let's listen to one person at a time. Senator Kinyua.
Madam Speaker, the reason I'm saying this is because if you look at this letter, because now I can see the content, it was written to the commission, chairman of the commission, and that's why you're seeing the clerk of the Senate is written here very clearly, clerk of the Senate and secretary to the commission. Because it followed very well. The person who was being written this letter is the chairman of the commission and being copied to the secretary of the commission. And there is no time, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kinyua, you are wrong on that. It says speaker and chair. Let's not argue on that. Let's, honorable senators, I'd like to call upon all of you to actually allow Senator Korir to finish her argument on this issue. Senator Cherargei, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Mine is just to request the honorable colleagues that we need to agree. This is a very, I can't apologize, my friend. This is a very important commission that we want to have because of a number of bending works that need to be done. Remember, we've not done register verification. We've not done a number of things that are waiting us. So, and that is one of the roles that we have to play as a house. So I want to request you, I want to plead with you that let's give them this time. It was within your hands to either reduce the number of days or even to reject. But where we are, I will plead with you, led by our able senator from Nairobi, that we give them time so that they can conclude this work and be able to take this country to the next height. Otherwise, thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I would want to request that is fairly the procedure and less kindly
Senator
approve this
Cherargei,
motion. Thank you.
You're being very disruptive. Senator Omtata. Senator Cherargei, we will listen to those contributing in silence, please.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to oppose this motion. Because when listening to what has been going on, I've just wondered what the powers of the Parliamentary Service Commission are. When did they become a medium for introducing debate in this House? As far as I'm concerned, there's no request to Parliament to extend time. Number two, this House is presided over by the Speaker. The other House is presided over by the Speaker. The two houses form Parliament. and I agree with those who have said that where Parliament is supposed to be asked to do anything, the two speakers have to be addressed. It's not correct that the clerk is addressed on behalf of the speaker. There are letters which go to the clerk, which are merely for administrative work or for petitions. But to request a special favor from Parliament, you have to move the speakers. So as far as we are concerned, we have not been moved to grant any extension of time. Madam Speaker, I've looked through the motion, and I'm just seeing a recitation of nothing. There's a lot of words here, but they say nothing. Not a single reason has been given as to why we should extend the time of the IEBC. All I can see written down here are things like noting that, further noting that, conscious of, further conscious, now therefore. There's no reason given why they want to extend time. There's no reason why they want to extend time. Number two, if I've seen the letter that was written to the Honorable Tangula, it expressly asks for 30 days. Can we debate in the absence of these people requested for 30 days and reduce that to 14 days as the National Assembly has done? Would it be proper for them to justify why they need 30 days and not 31 days? I think we should approach this thing with the seriousness it deserves. If really, first of all, the law allows this House to extend time, which means there was a recognition that there would come an occasion when time would have to be extended. But the person seeking to extend time, or the entity seeking to extend time, must give us reasons why they need the time extended. And our decision must be on merit. So in the absence of an application to this House, through our Speaker, and in an believable decision by the National Assembly to assume that it knows that 14 days will be enough and not 30 days, without hearing the other party, and the failure for the other party to give any reasons why they want an extension of time, this being a House of Record, I would not like to be associated with this kind of disregard for due process, disregard for the law, and disregard for detail. And so I oppose the motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kenywa, is he? Senator Mandago.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me first say that indeed, as a country, we need the Electoral Commission in place as soon as possible. And we must appreciate that there has been quite some delay in the process. And in that delay, Madam Speaker, there are citizens of this country who are not being represented, either in the National Assembly or in the Senate or even in the county assemblies, Honorable Speaker. And those citizens have a right to be represented, Honorable Speaker, and their matters to be heard through their representatives. In view of that, Madam Speaker, despite the challenges of the chair not writing to the Senate, and we take exception that there is contempt of this House to the extent that they seem not to understand that we have a responsibility as a Senate also to approve the extension of time for them to be able to conduct their work, Madam Speaker. I do support this motion that the time be extended for the selection panel to complete the process so that we can have an IEBC in place, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, successful election or credible election is also determined by the amount of preparation that is put in place to ensure that logistical issues are properly addressed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we don't want to run to 2027 and we have an electoral body that has just arrived shortly before elections, Madam Speaker. That would be giving room for those who will be selected as commissioners and chair of the commission, Madam Speaker, to give excuses of lack of preparedness for the election. I think as a House, Madam Speaker, and I want to persuade my colleagues, although I also agree with the sentiments of the Senator for Nairobi, that the chair of the selection panel should have noted. And secondly, Madam Speaker, that the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission, who happens to be the Speaker of the National Assembly, should not receive a letter on 20th March and it is being supplied to us to discuss in an ambush kind of arrangement, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think some matters need to be taken seriously because it affects the nation. It can jeopardize the nation. If the Senate today decides they are not going to approve this extension, then we are likely to have, you know, a rash selection of candidates that might, at the end, give us problems, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having said that, I support the extension of time. I support this motion that we extend the time for the selection panel. But next time, Madam Speaker, the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission and the selection panel should note that Senate has a responsibility and a role in this process, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Senator Nyamu? Senator Nyamu, are you ready or you're not?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to contribute to this motion. We know the hue and cry that superseded the selection of this panel. We know the long wait that the country had to go through before we get this panel in place as selected by the President. We cannot ignore the fact that the Senate should be given due respect and addressed in issues serious as this. But at the same time, we are here to serve the country. We cannot delay this further, or we cannot be one of the bottlenecks of this process of coming up with the IBC commissioners. We cannot be one of the institutions creating bottlenecks. We have to facilitate the process and take up the issues of Parliament and our grievances on a different platform. So with that, Madam Speaker, I want to support.
I can't see another speaker. Move it. You want to reply or you want to speak?
I want to speak.
Majority?
No,
I know.
it was
It's
Alwal.
the
I was not there. What is about? Madam Speaker, you know, I was in the farm in Kericho planting sugarcane, but then I was told there's a very important matter that I need to look after here this afternoon. I don't know why people are finding too many things to complain about in this matter. This is a very straightforward issue. You know, this selection panel, Madam Speaker, this is our baby. It's a creation of a process that this House was very deeply much involved in, the NADCO process. And we created this selection panel, which suffered very many challenges in its setting up, some of which the Senator for Nairobi, my good friend, spoke about even yesterday in a press conference. I think I watched him somewhere, explaining the difficulties we had in setting up this selection panel. Eventually, we had the selection panel, and to the best of my ability, I have tried to follow what they are doing, and I am impressed by the work that they are doing. They are trying their very best to get us the next IBC, and they have a very tight schedule. I have, Mr. Speaker, conducted interviews for public positions previously when I was in PSC. It's a very tiresome job, you know, because Kenyans are Kenyans. Sometimes they come, they have forgotten their documents. I don't know what has happened. You ask them a very straightforward question. They give answers
through all forms of shapes and sizes, but eventually you have to make a decision. Now, as per this request, why it's coming to us, Mr. Speaker, is because on the last day that they finish their interviews, they'll only be left with 1 day to write the report and send the names to the president, the list of the nominees for him to select. I think if my memory serves me right, 3 names for the chairperson and 9 so that the president can select 1, and 9 for, what are they called, members, so that he can select 6 out of them. To expect that this commission, this selection panel, Madam Speaker, will complete their work at 5 p.m. and tomorrow sit down, comb through the list of interviewers, I think hundreds of them from the short list, and do a report is to push our luck too far. You know, Madam Speaker, it is Parliament that provides the secretarial work. Staff of Parliament, our own staff are the ones that are tabulating the results and welcoming staffers, as we have done previously in many other national assignments. Therefore, this request came to PSC, Parliamentary Service Commission, which is a body that collates all or coordinates for all the nominating institutions. When, for example, LSK sent their nominee, they send it to PSC. When we have a interreligious council, they have 2 nominees in that panel, they send it to PSC. We have this other one for accountants, what is it called? ISPAC. They send their nominees to that. So PSC is a coordinating body. And the chairperson of PSC is the Speaker of the National Assembly. So it's important that we separate our issues. Sometimes we may not agree with the National Assembly on many things, and I've said all those things here on this floor. But it is important to also understand that he has another role. And in that PSC, there are 6 senators. The vice chairperson of Speaker Moses Wetangula is none other than Senator Joyce, who's seated here. So if, by the way, for whatever reason, that letter came in and it was urgent and it needed to be attended to, the person who would have processed that letter is a senator who sits in this house with us. In fact, Madam Speaker, because I happen to have caught some of the submissions that our colleagues have made, I have shared in the official WhatsApp group of Senate Business, Madam Speaker, the letter now from PSC to all the houses. That letter is written by Clerk Nyegenye, the clerk of the Senate. National Assembly could equally have chosen to complain and say, why is somebody from the Senate writing to us? This should have been about us alone. Surely, good people. This is just about PSC and nothing about us and our differences as a house.
What's your point of order, Senator Sifuna?
Yes, Madam Speaker, understanding on the 1014, it appears as if the majority leader is imputing very improper motive on our part to raise those objections. Yet, the mover of the motion who was standing in for him has already apologized to us by for not supplying that information that you're now referring to the House prior to the motion. Majority Leader, you are my witness. We agreed, both sides of this House, the majority and the minority side, that we will not conduct business by ambush. That this information that you're putting out now should have been with the members before. And your colleague on the other side, who is also the vice chair of the PSC, she herself had not seen that letter. I mean, what are we to make of this? We asked our speaker, he had not seen the letter. We have had to get this letter from the National Assembly. So to be fair to us, when such a motion is brought, first we need to be informed, and it would have been nice if you had attached all this correspondence so that we don't have to make noise about what you're considering nothing. But for you to say that you don't understand why we are making noise is to be very fair, especially because you have come to the House late and you're telling us you're growing sugarcane in Kericho when I know it doesn't grow in Kericho. Sure.
Senator Sifuna, Senator Majority, you can respond to that. Senator Sifuna has explained why members objected to
this is a problem of these Nairobi people who grow kales or sukuma in gunias on balconies. They don't understand the geography of Kenya. There is a lot of sugarcane in Kericho, my good friend Senator Sifuna. Anyway, if that matter then has been properly explained to the House, then I'm satisfied. It's because of the messages that I saw from many people saying there's a matter that has arisen in the House and nobody appears to be clear about it. Then if it has been explained to the satisfaction of my colleagues, then I abandon that thought. And indeed, I agree with them that they needed to be in the know. I do confess also myself that it's only when I saw the order paper that I understood that there was such a motion. I remember about 2 or 3 weeks ago being informed that there was going to be such an occurrence, but I had not known the way through which it's going to be processed. But I'm satisfied now if my colleagues have been explained to and they are now properly seized of the matter, especially Senator Umtata, who has caused us, Madam Speaker, more than 1 year of a delay. You know, Madam Speaker, when we passed the initial law, it is this Umtata who went to court and said Parliament had allocated himself more than enough slots. Therefore, we reduced to 4 from the initial. I think we had, I think now we have 2 actually. Initially, we had 4 because of this good man that is seated here. But if he's come as he is, then it means that he's satisfied with what has been explained, Madam Speaker, and what has been done now. So with those many remarks, I want to urge that we give IBC selection panel these extra 14 days that they're asking for. I hope they give us competent Kenyans, men and women of great character and quality that can serve this nation in a great way. There are many by-elections that we are waiting, and members of political parties are looking forward to nominate people, participate in those campaigns. I have not done a campaign, Madam Speaker, since 2022. And you know we have campaigns coming up in 2 years. I may have forgotten how to address a crowd. I need to test my vocal cords, Madam Speaker, somewhere. Either in Malava or Boni Kalwale. I will rely on his wisdom to tell me which candidate to support for our party, the UDA. Once we find that candidate, we meet and we square it out with Sifuna, because I'm sure he'll present a candidate. Much as I know his chances in Malava are very limited. That's what Boni Alwale has informed me many times, that is a corner of Kakamega that is completely yellow, Madam Speaker. Anyway, with those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to urge my colleagues that we support this motion. I thank you. Thank you for this chance, Madam Speaker.
The mover may now reply. Senator Khalwale.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I rise to respond. Or rather, to put it in the proper balance, to reply.
To reply or to respond?
To reply. You just got me when I was correcting. You know, Madam Speaker, I went to Malinya Primary School, where my headmaster, the late Andrew Makwaka, Imbundu, was very keen on English. He made sure we spoke good English. That's why you see me quickly run away from the word respond to reply. Unlike my kid brother Edwin, who was at Kakamega Primary School, he can't even remember the name of his teacher who taught him English. That's how Genesee is. So, Madam Speaker, I rise to reply, and I want to thank all colleagues. The challenges raised, I have come in when the leader of the majority was responding to them. They were purely administrative, no ill intent. The point is made, and I look forward to us having a good chair of the IEBC. Nothing is greater. The history of chairing elections in this country is replete with all manner of challenges, and I hope that the people I saw being interviewed will be up to it. With those many remarks, I reply. Yeah? Let me see in the...
Sergeant at Arms, would you kindly ring the bell for 5 minutes? Honorable Senators, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84.1, I wish to determine that this matter does not affect counties. Clerk, can you ascertain that we have quorum? Honorable Senators, I put the question. Aware that Vide Gazette Notice numbers 1901 and 2646, dated 14th February 2023 and 1st March 2023, respectively, His Excellency the President declared one vacancy for the position of the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, and 6 vacancies for the position of member of IEBC. Further aware that Vide Gazette Notice number 715 of 27th January 2025, His Excellency the President appointed members of the selection panel for the recruitment of nominees for appointment as the chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, noting that upon its appointment, the selection panel commenced the recruitment process and longlisted all applicants and subsequently shortlisted qualified applicants for the position of chairperson and member of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, further noting that paragraph 6.1 of the first schedule to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act, Cap 7C, provides that the selection panel shall finalize the recruitment exercise within 90 days of its appointment and forward the names of the nominees to the President. Conscious that the selection panel is currently undertaking the interviews of the shortlisted candidates for the positions of chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and that given the interview schedule of all shortlisted applicants, the selection panel has inadequate time to conclude the recruitment process. Further conscious of the need for the selection panel to ensure the recruitment process complies with the constitutional principles of regional balance, representation of the youth, and the overall inclusivity, while ensuring that the interviews are conducted as far as is practicable within official working days and hours. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of paragraph 6.2 of the first schedule to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Act, Cap 7C, the Houses of Parliament the Senate resolved to extend the tenure of the selection panel for the recruitment of persons for appointment as chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission by a period of 14 days from 28th April 2025. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order. Say it quickly. Next order.
Order number 17, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Energy on its inquiry into the liquefied petroleum gas explosion in Muradi area, Embakasi, Nairobi City County.
I'm informed, Senator Sifuna, you'll do it?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the chairperson of the Energy Committee, the Senator for Siaya, the Honorable Dr. Oburu Oginga Odinga, allow me to move the motion on the report of the Standing Committee on Energy on its inquiry into the liquefied petroleum gas LPG explosion in Mradi area, Embakasi, Nairobi City County. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Energy on its inquiry into the liquefied petroleum gas explosion in Mradi area, Embakasi, Nairobi City County, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 8th August 2024. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, I am a very proud member of the Energy Committee, and I have been so since the inception of this House. This particular report, Honorable Speaker, was prepared under the auspices of the previous committee. As you are aware, we had the reconstitution of the committees when we began this session. So if you look at the chairpersons forward, at that particular moment in time, our chairperson was the Senator for Nyeri, the Honorable Matinga Wahome, who now is a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission, which we have just been discussing right now, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, on Thursday, 1st February 2024, an LPG explosion occurred in the Mradi area of Embakasi, Nairobi County. The facility involved was an LPG plant used for storing and filling gas cylinders. This explosion claimed the lives of 11 Kenyans and left at least 280 other people injured. The explosion further resulted in a massive fire which spread to nearby buildings, causing extensive damage to residential and commercial properties. Following this incident, Honorable Chair, I had occasion, in fact, together with the area member of Parliament, the Honorable Babu Owino, and the party leader of ODM, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, to visit this particular area. And we resolved, together with members of the committee, that we had to conduct an inquiry as to what led to this particular incident happening, with a view of making sure that it never happens again. Honorable Speaker, during the committee proceedings, we framed the deliberations in order to arrive or to determine the following issues as key issues for resolution. And the first reason was why the LPG refilling facility was located so close to a human settlement, the ownership details of the company that was running the facility, compliance to statutory and regulatory requirements of having an LPG refill and storage facility, details of LPG refill and storage facilities and their locations in the country, sorted per counties, and safeguards that the government has put in place to avoid a recurrence of the same. So during these deliberations, Honorable Speaker, we held 6 meetings as a committee, and I want to thank members of this committee, led by the then chairperson, for the dedication in order to bring some level of closure to the people of Mradi and the people of Nairobi in general. Honorable Chair, we held 6 meetings with key stakeholders, including the then Cabinet Secretary for Energy, the Director General of the National Environment Management Agency, the DG for EPRA, the Director and Gas Explosives Expert at EPRA. Then we had the Petroleum Institute of East Africa also appearing before the committee, and the Energy Dealers Association. With your permission, Speaker, I will just run through very quickly some of the committee observations during that engagement, and I've noted them down. Honorable Speaker, first of all, one of the key observations that the committee made is that there's involvement of multiple legal regulatory bodies in the licensing process, which creates a complex web of responsibility that somebody needs to obtain before they operate such a facility. The problem we have is that these various agencies that are responsible for giving these licenses do not speak to each other. So somebody will go to the county government of Nairobi and obtain a business permit saying they want to set up a shop somewhere there. And then they will go with that approval to NEMA, say we are setting up a garage. In fact, this particular site had been registered as a garage, and they didn't even have a license from EPRA to operate a gas filling plant. So that presence of multiple legal regulatory bodies and the fact that they do not coordinate and speak to each other when required to, then it causes that complex web of responsibility, and it is very difficult to pin somebody down and say you are the person responsible. As I said, that LPG refilling plant in Mradi was registered as a garage and not an LPG facility. So the county government of Nairobi disclaimed responsibility for any licenses that had been issued in this regard. But you will see from our observations and recommendations that there was also very serious dereliction of duty on the part of the county government of Nairobi when it comes to enforcement and inspection. Honorable Speaker, this complex web of many regulatory bodies led to the fact that this company, in fact, had a valid environmental impact license from NEMA, and the registration number is there, approving the installation of a 10 metric ton LPG storage and filling plant. The committee noted, however, that the issuance of the environmental license did not absolve the company from its obligations to acquire other applicable permits, and especially permits from EPRA. As a result of that incident, Honorable Speaker, EPRA suspended all operational licenses issued to Maxis Nanyuki Energy, who was the operator of this particular plant, and Clear Mwiki gas suppliers. It further shut down 63 out of the 140 LPG storage and refilling plants located within a radius of 200 meters near residential areas due to high risk or risky technical audit score. Following reinspection, 39 of those facilities were reopened, with some implementing safety measures like firewalls, reducing the required distance from residential areas to about 35 meters. Honorable Speaker, very quickly, we made certain recommendations as a committee, and we are hoping that we will follow through after this House adopts a report. The first recommendation we made was that the DCI must investigate how Maxis Energy obtained an LPG storage and filling plant license, and those found culpable be charged in accordance with Section 99 of the Petroleum Act. In addition, the National Police Service and Directorate of Criminal Investigation should fast-track all pending criminal cases relating to non-compliance of LPG regulations. Honorable Speaker, we also recommended that the Ministry of Energy must expedite the approval of the LPG regulations of 2019, which have provided for more stringent compliance measures when it comes to operation of similar plants. And also, Honorable Speaker, that all licensing authorities, and especially the county governments, must enforce zoning boundaries prior to issuing any permits. Honorable Speaker, the committee also recommended that there will be no new petroleum facilities licensed in residential neighborhoods. And this is a matter that we took up with the Governor of Nairobi when he appeared before this committee last week, because we would want him to address the proliferation of gas filling plants and even petrol stations, especially in residential areas, which is something that causes undue and unnecessary danger to the people of Nairobi and other areas. Honorable Speaker, finally, we address the question of compensation for affected victims, and this you will find at paragraph 18 on page 12, that the affected victims should be compensated through the National Disaster Management Unit, whose main function is to administer a comprehensive emergency disaster program in collaboration with stakeholders, EPRA, and in order to save lives and protect property. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have tabled this comprehensive summary of the committee's findings, observations, and recommendations. And on behalf of the committee, we just want to wish the various to thank the various stakeholders who came before the committee and submitted their views, including the cabinet secretaries, NEMA, EPRA, PIEA, and the Energy Dealers Association, and the governor of Nairobi City County for appearing, and we hope that they will take seriously the recommendations that have been made by this committee. I wish to also acknowledge the 11 lives that were lost in the tragedy and the many people who were injured or displaced or who suffered loss due to damage to their homes and their businesses. This devastating event left a profound impact on our country, and our hearts go out to all those affected. As the committee responsible, we have made a commitment to ensure that the relevant regulatory bodies implement stricter safety protocols to prevent future incidents. Finally, I wish to thank the officers of the Speaker and the Clerk of the Senate for their support during the entire process of considering this matter. It is now my pleasure and duty, Honorable Speaker, to table or to move this motion and to ask that I don't see any member of the Energy Committee, the majority leader, to second the motion. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Majority Leader, please proceed to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second, which is this report on the inquiry into the LPG explosion in Mradi area in Mbakasi. Mbakasi is where I grew up, Mr. Speaker, and anytime such disasters happen, it reminds me that despite the fact that I have a position of privilege now, it may as well just have been okay, I don't want to say what I wanted to say, Mr. Speaker, because it's a very serious, it's a sad affair, and we must really appreciate the Senate's Energy Committee, the Standing Committee on Energy, for taking the time to look through this matter, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that they file a report which, Mr. Speaker, I hope can fully be implemented. Senator Sifuna, you know, there has been this debate in the House about whether to have an implementation committee or not. And I have always maintained the position and that we should not have an implementation committee because there's nobody better prepared on a particular matter other than the relevant committee which looked into that particular matter. I hope that in the course of your deliberations as a committee, somewhere along the line, a few months after this, that you will actually check through all these state agencies that you have tasked with proposal to ensure that they do that which needs to be done. I have seen that there are recommendations for DCI, there are certain things that they need to do for EPRA and the rest, Mr. Speaker, including the charging and being brought to book, actually, of those that will be found responsible. One of the things that we continue to struggle with as a country, and it's something that which I hope in future we can be able to overcome, is how we can quickly close some of what you'd consider to be an open-shut case. Because, Senator Sifuna, there's nothing complex about this matter. Somebody was operating an LPG gas storage facility illegally. That person is known because the company has directors. Those people are known, Mr. Speaker. They caused death and lifelong injuries to other citizens, including a very good friend of mine called Collins Nabiswa, Mr. Speaker, who lives somewhere within that proximity. Somebody, a good friend of mine that I play football with and were with in high school. Today, if you meet him, you'll barely recognize that he's a gentleman that we were in school with, Mr. Speaker. And so many other Kenyans that were affected because of such negligence. Why does it take inordinately long? Why is it that the owners of this company are not serving time in jail? Why is it that this case, Mr. Speaker, and you are a lawyer, you understand this, why does it have to take that length of time where the case appears before a judge, then he gives a mention date of I don't know which other date? You know, we must copy world established practices, especially those that are worth copying, Mr. Speaker. You remember recently, and I keep saying, I have said this example more than once, and I hope the day that I meet the CJ, because one day probably we may meet them, we'd wish to know, as the Houses of Parliament and as leaders, what is it that we can do with our judiciary so that we conclude on some of these matters, Mr. Speaker, expeditiously. And I cite the example of recently in the UK, there were demonstrations, if you recall. I think there are kids who had been killed, and there were demonstrations, and somehow they spilled over and almost turned into chaos and racial hate, and there were destruction of property and things like that, Madam Speaker. All the people that participated and they were captured on CCTV, breaking into people's shops, mugging others, destroying property, Madam Speaker, most of them have been arrested, and they're already serving their time in jail. A judge listens to the case, watches the CCTV, confirms that this is Aaron Cheruiyot who I'm seeing, after they put their defense. The following morning, they show up with a verdict, and you begin to serve your time in jail. I don't understand why in Kenya it is extremely impossible, Madam Speaker, to see such kind of things. This is somebody who was operating a facility illegally without any license, Mr. Speaker. Why does this matter have to take that length of time before these people that lost their lives and those that were injured in this fire finally get justice? I really hope that with the passage now of this report that has been brought before us, Mr. Speaker, the agencies and state departments, including the DPP, would actually consider a quick conclusion of the trial of these people that were involved. Second thing, Mr. Speaker, is on the issue of EPRA, where it is increasingly clear that where there are shared responsibilities between EPRA and the county government, that they should ensure strict adherence to the licensing requirements outlined in the Petroleum Act. There is need, the committee observe, for comprehensive review and regular updates of the licensing processes to be conducted to enhance transparency, efficiency, and compliance. You know, the unfortunate thing, Mr. Speaker, is that in this country, when Parliament passes laws on licensing procedures, unfortunately, the monitoring units, be they of county governments or even institutions such as this, they see them as a cash cow. I will not be surprised if many times there were EPRA officers who perhaps have gone to this institution more than once, and they have been, of course, seen to look the other way, and eventually this happened, Mr. Speaker. It will be important, and this did not come out quite elaborately, and I don't know if you pursued it, Mr. Speaker, for the DG of EPRA, Mr. Daniel Kipto, to tell us, because I want to believe that they have divided the country and given zones of which officer is in charge of which particular zone, you know, to tell us which of his officers actually slept on the job. Because an LPG storage facility is not a tin shack shop. This is a big facility that anybody who drives on that particular road, Mr. Speaker, will easily notice. This facility, listening to the testimonies, if I recall at that particular time when this incident was alive in the country, citizens said it had been operational for years actually, and that people would go in, refill, and move out until this disaster struck. The question, Mr. Speaker, perhaps that we need to know even today is what is it that EPRA has done since the occurrence of this disaster to ensure that this never happens in any part of this country? How have they increased the vigilance and the observance of these stringent procedures that Parliament has passed and ensure that actually the regulations are adhered to? You know, many times it's easy to blame Parliament. Many times on social media, on public talk shows, Mr. Speaker, Parliament is always the easiest to carry the burden when such things happen. But on many things in this country and the challenges that we continue to face, it is not for lack of good laws. We have passed very many good laws, Mr. Speaker. It is the implementation that we continue to struggle with. And second, and most importantly, is the first point that I spoke about, that there are no sanctions against those who violate those regulations. The fact that people are never punished. The fact that it takes too long, Mr. Speaker, to make a decision, to even, Mr. Speaker, be remorseful. You have seen, and I have seen, for example, let me just digress a bit, that many times we in the political class, that there are those of us that perhaps share political parties with us, say they are a governor or a member of parliament, Mr. Speaker, that they are found to have pilfered public resources. When they are taken to court, many times you'll find us shamelessly walking there, demanding to stand with them and support, going to visit them in industry area, while in a proper country, Mr. Speaker, that is governed by the rule of law, even somebody who's your closest friend, you'd maintain what I'd refer to as a respectable distance, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps you'd send them uji and whatever from a distance, but tell the boss whatever you did is not something that is worth of a leader of your stature. But we don't feel embarrassed because we have turned this into political circus. And our citizens have followed in tow to ensure that so long as somebody is known to you, they don't mind, they don't care the things that are done. There are many problems that people continue to deal with. It is not for lack of laws that this country, Mr. Speaker, continues to face the challenges. We are today here speaking about LPGs. You can pick any topic He'll be nightclubs operating in residential areas. Today, if you walk in this city, Madam Speaker, there are nightclubs all over. Yet there is a county government, there is NEMA, Mr. Speaker. And many times, you'd find that for one reason or the other, people look the other way. The judiciary is also complicit in this. Because many of these institutions, when the county government shut them, they go and obtain a court order. Up to when, Mr. Speaker, shall we continue to just come and cry and say, oh, this or that needs to be done? In fact, I have realized that many times, Mr. Speaker, it takes even ignoring of court orders for people to achieve some of the things that have been achieved in this country. Because there is a circus everywhere. From the implementing agencies to those that are the regulators, and to eventually the law enforcement agencies. And even when people are taken to court, Mr. Speaker, they are let go of with a slap on the wrist. People bend laws, Mr. Speaker. There is also a recommendation. There are so many recommendations to EPRA. Part B actually speaks to what I was speaking about. This is to point to the fact that I had not fully read the report, but I now see that the committee actually went into this issue of zoning. A good one, actually, Mr. Speaker. That physical inspection should be carried out before issuing any license to ensure that the zoning laws are not breached. Because there are areas through which you cannot be allowed to run such a facility. These include residential areas, Mr. Speaker. If you are setting up an LPG storage facility, Mr. Speaker, there is an expectation that actually it will be in a certain safe zone, so that if there are incidences such as this, you don't have members of the public suffering. And the committee went into deep detail to speak about this. I hope we share these recommendations with EPRA and ask them actually to guide and lead us. There is also need to compensation of victims, that the affected victims should be compensated through the National Disaster Management Unit, whose main function is to administer comprehensive emergency and disaster program in collaborations with stakeholders, EPRA, in order to save lives and property. The committee therefore recommends that this report be dispatched to the following institutions. This is what I was speaking to earlier. DCI, EPRA, NEMA, Council of Governors, Nairobi City County, for the purpose of implementing within a period of 6 months from the date of the tabling, not even from the date of passing, just tabling like they have done. And I want to believe this report was tabled even earlier. Actually, it was received, it was tabled on the 8th of, 7th actually of August, 2024, meaning the 6 months are almost over. Actually, they are over. Perhaps at your next sitting, Senator Sifuna, you may want to ask your clerk to check with these institutions what they have done since your committee did a stellar job actually at looking into the recommendations of this particular committee. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I must continue to pass a word of apology to the fellow countrymen that we lost, but I know it is not in our place as Parliament to just send a word of condolence. The family of the victims expects that one, no other Kenyan will face such an occurrence, and second and most importantly, that the victims will be served justice. The only way these victims will get justice, colleagues, is when those that were running this facility are brought to book, they are charged before a court of law and sentenced, Mr. Speaker, with murder or manslaughter at the very worst, Mr. Speaker, because they knew what they were doing, they knew the dangers therein, so that it serves as a lesson, Mr. Speaker. You know, the unfortunate thing, and I'll repeat this for emphasis' sake, Mr. Speaker, is that so long as people know that you live in a country where even if you break the law, nothing happens to you, then there is no motivation to respect the rule of law. And that is the biggest challenge that we have as a country. And the fact that it takes long, even in matters that are considered actually, Mr. Speaker, to be serious breaches of law, that it takes too long to conclude on this matter. In fact, I recall, just as a last point, Mr. Speaker, because corruption is one of the serious challenges that we continue to speak about, year in, year out. It's a campaign promise of almost every political party and every president that has served this country, I think, for as long as I can remember. Yet we continue to see the challenge of corruption in this country. The president, when he last addressed Parliament, at the State of the Nation address last year in November, did table a proposal, which I don't know why it has taken this long, perhaps for our colleagues in the National Assembly, because unfortunately as Senate, we don't allocate resources and we have no ways and means through which we can bring it to life, for there to be set up a separate division of our courts that can quickly conclude on corruption cases, the same way we are able to conclude within 6 months election petitions, Mr. Speaker. So that once DPP is satisfied that your file has sealed all the loopholes and there is a basis to charge you and you have been taken to court, within 6 months, the courts make a determination. I strongly believe that if we were to set up that culture, Mr. Speaker, and conclude on this case, it will contribute actually to a reduction of corruption cases. So long as the case is such that you know that the worst that can happen to you is that you will take plea and then you will be released, and it will take I don't know how many months before a determination is made on your matter, and after that you can move to the High Court, Court of Appeal, all the way to the Supreme Court. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, people will not respect these laws. Therefore, I want to urge colleagues to take time to read this report, support it, but we still must call on the institutions that are charged with the responsibility to bring the perpetrators of this extremely heinous act to book and ensure that our 11 fellow citizens that lost their life and the hundreds of others whose lives have been affected one way or the other, Mr. Speaker, finally get justice in this regard. And most importantly, that EPRA sets in place the procedures to ensure that this never happens again in the Republic of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I beg to second.
Now, Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Energy on its inquiry into the liquefied petroleum gas LPG explosion in Muradi area, Embakasi, Nairobi City County, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 8th of August, 2024. Now, members, I will invite those who are interested in contributing to this particular motion, and I'll call upon Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda.
Thank you, Chair. Allow me to start really by appreciating the Energy Committee. They've really done a good job as far as this report is concerned. It's a very important report, Mr. Speaker, because when this incident happened in Embakasi, I was able to appear. I was able to get to site. And Mr. Speaker, when I recall that particular day, it's really a very, very sad day. Mr. Speaker, coming into terms with what had happened, seeing young children, mothers, men, some lost their lives, some trying to come to terms with what had happened. And Mr. Speaker, seeing them in the condition that they were, their skin, you know, really burned. It was really, and it really is a sad day to remember. But I'm happy that the Committee of Energy was able to take up this matter. And looking at the report briefly, as I've just brushed through it, Mr. Speaker, there are different bodies and different stakeholders that when it comes to matters energy, different stakeholders come together and have the mandate to license these businesses as far as LPG gas is concerned, Mr. Speaker. And they range from the counties themselves, especially Nairobi County, which now offers the business license and permits. We also have institutions like NEMA. We also have EPRA, Mr. Speaker. We also have Energy Dealers Association that I've seen that they were also able to appear. We also have the gas explosive experts from EPRA, Mr. Speaker, we also have Petroleum Institute of East Africa, which tells you that this composition of stakeholders is very important because it is them who guide as far as the policies are concerned. And these policies, having just briefly looked at the report, these are policies that also talk about construction permits. You have to be given approval to be able to do the construction of a site of LPG. We have to have also be licensed as far as the facilities are concerned. So it's deeper. It's not something, it's not just any normal business. They will just decide to operate a specific business, but it requires intense policies, intense adherence. Mr. Speaker, what I'm simply trying to say is, if the different institutions were able to ensure that this company, I think it's called Maxis something, Energy Petroleum, were able to adhere to the standards, we will not be even in this position discussing what transpired, Mr. Speaker. People lost lives, Mr. Speaker. People lost their enterprises because I saw business people who have lost 99% of their stocks, of their businesses. They had to shut down, they had to restart, Mr. Speaker. So if the different stakeholders would ensure, from this report I've seen over close to 140 petroleum businesses that have been licensed, then it is a high time that they ensure they get to the bottom to ensure that the standards that are required for one to be able to set up these facilities, they have adhered to the requirements that are in place. As I've listened to the majority speaker giving his submissions, Mr. Speaker, he's mentioned on the issue of corruption. This is not the first time in this country that we see such explosions taking place. And God forbid that we do not wake up again in the near future and get such news, Mr. Speaker. I would also wish that the committee takes it further, that the licensed, approved companies by the recommended institutions, they give further report on the status, the current status of these particular facilities, the inspection reports, the status, in short, of the condition of these particular companies. Because sometimes you realize out of these 140 companies, Mr. Speaker, you realize probably one individual owns like 5 of them, but the names are just different. So if he has decided to do shortcuts, Mr. Speaker, it will not just be one facility, but it will be the 5 facilities that this person is operating. So it is important that the committee takes advantage of the companies. The report indicates the companies that are licensed. Then they go deeper to get into understand the status of these particular companies. Have they adhered to the policies, to the requirements as far as KEB standards are also concerned, NEMA standards, the EPRA standards that are needed. The counties also themselves to be able to ensure, because all these companies cut across all the 47 counties, but Nairobi has majority of these particular companies. So you find that also whereby these approvals are given, and yet this company is within an estate, is within households, homesteads, Mr. Speaker, then that's an automatic risk. We've seen earlier whereby we've said clubs or what do you call them, clubs and pubs should not be next to the learning institutions, Mr. Speaker. But then, because of corruption, this takes place, you know. So the issue of ensuring proximity is considered as far as homesteads are concerned, businesses are concerned. These institutions should not be within households. It should be having the appropriate proximity. I don't know even how the construction permit was issued by the same EPRA, yet this facility was within the residential places, Mr. Speaker. The culprits should now be brought to book. People lost lives. That is equal to murder. The law is there. It's very clear, Mr. Speaker. So the security operators, the legal system should ensure they fasten this so that it sets an example to others who are still not adhering. Because, Mr. Speaker, you find that the cases drag, they take time, someone is just free, they're still continuing these businesses, because even looking at this report, this stakeholder or this business person seemed to have this business under still another name, you know. And so if this is, if they're not brought to book on time, then this brings the risk of more scrupulous business people undertaking these businesses and exposing Kenyans to the risks that come with it, Mr. Speaker. With those few and many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the committee's work, and the culprit should be brought to book as soon as possible. I submit.
Thank you, Senator Tabitha. Senator Karen Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have followed keenly as Senator Sifuna presented that report from the Energy Committee. I am happy with the recommendations, and I note that that company that caused this tragedy in Embakasi, Nairobi, had unsuccessfully applied for licenses for the permit to run such a facility 3 times from EPRA. They were denied. The neighborhood had also complained to NEMA about the potential threat of having operations of such nature in such a densely populated area, like you know Embakasi is. The Energy Committee has done a good job. I have listened to the report. It is very thorough. And all I can say is that we hope that every single recommendation in that report is going to be implemented, not only to punish the errant company, but also as a deterrent of practitioners in this space to ensure that the lives of Kenyans are protected, and also as a deterrent of these bodies who issue the permits, to see how they can have a coordinated approach so that you don't get a permit from EPRA and go ahead and get denied in NEMA. You meet the requirements in EPRA, but you fall short of requirements of NEMA, and so forth and so forth, Mr. Speaker. If, as a House, we can, I think I have heard Senator Sifuna referring to such a recommendation that we have a unified permit for such activities, if anything, to protect the lives of Kenyans and to have a conducive environment for such operations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Karen. Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And thank you for holding forth. I saw you in the morning busy grilling your governor on issues of status of education in Bomet County. And I hope the governor was not crying, because the pictures we are seeing, I hope he had a problem with his eyes, because the pictures we are seeing. Maybe when you will get a chance, you will be able to tell us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I rise to support this motion. The issue of, Mr. Speaker, we were horrified when, and I want to ask EPRA, Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, under the law they are supposed to regulate, Mr. Speaker, sir. On many occasions, Mr. Speaker, sir, how would you allow, Mr. Speaker, a LPG gas company to operate within the residential area, Mr. Speaker, sir? This country, there is so much impunity that even Jesus Christ was to come back to Kenya, he would be worried because we have so many laws, many good laws, but the implementation and effectiveness of those laws, Mr. Speaker, sir, no one is complying with. The IPRA should not license, should have not even licensed such an LPG gas that is within residential area, Mr. Speaker. Even when we passed the issue of Alcohol and Control Act, the famous Mututo law, the issue of churches and mosques within residential areas. I have seen here in Nairobi, and my two sisters, Nairobi delegation, Senator Karen Nyamu and Senator, my good sister, Senator Mutinda, will tell you, I normally see environmental compliance officer running around in Nairobi, trying to tell people you cannot operate disco, you cannot operate mosques and churches within residential area, Mr. Speaker. Even the opening of bars, you cannot open within schools. There is a regulation that has been given, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, we were horrified, and I think the least the Ministry of Energy, through EPRA, and other agencies can do is to compensate these families for the loss of lives and loss of property, Mr. Speaker, sir. We cannot allow as a country that the only thing EPRA is good at is to regulate prices. That is not what the law provided for EPRA only, Mr. Speaker, sir. EPRA under the law has more mandate than just telling us the price of petrol is 200 shillings, tomorrow is 100 shillings. I think there is a big confusion with even the management of EPRA that their work is to tell us whether fuel prices has gone up or has down. They must tell us when they are issuing licensing, who issued. Mr. Speaker, you being a senior lawyer in this country, know that there is what we call criminal negligence. Who issued this license is a residential area. Why are we closing alcohol places and outlets within schools, around schools, Mr. Speaker? It's because we want to comply with the law. And therefore, the loss of life in Embakasi East in Muradi area and also lives of property should be thorough, Mr. Speaker, as we talk. There should have been investigation and prosecution of the owners of LPG company, officers from IPRA who approve, officers from Nairobi City County, Mr. Speaker, sir. They should be in court facing prosecution for criminal negligence for the loss of property and lives, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I want to thank the Committee of Energy. Mr. Speaker, you remember in the last session, fortunately or unfortunately, you are not joining us, you are busy in litigation. We were able to sanction the Minister of Energy then. Then the Minister of Energy was being sanctioned by this House. We must, you remember the Solai Dam tragedy, Mr. Speaker, although you had not joined us. This House, when Chief Kiragu and County Commissioner and Canada were taking 20 million to families in Solai, it is the Senate that refused. And I'm happy up to today, the owners of Solai Dam, the likes of Patel, Mashakuru, are being prosecuted for criminal negligence for the loss of life on Solai Dam tragedy, Mr. Speaker. So on this LPG case that happened in Muradi area in Embakasi, Mr. Speaker, the EPRA must be charged, officials who approve. The environment, you know, there is no much to expect from Nairobi City County. Because if the other day they were dumping garbage at the steamer house here in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing much to expect from them. Mr. Speaker, you have seen the issue of compliance officers and the EPRA, Mr. Speaker. Number two, so number one, the family should be compensated and for loss of life and property. Number two, Mr. Speaker, is the investigation and prosecutions of all these officers I have mentioned. And the inspection, the people who go, Mr. Speaker, you know, for some of us, even, you know, I used to be a seller of meat in my days at somewhere called King's Butchery in Mosoria Trading Center. The public health officers used to come. You, Mr. Speaker, when you walk to hustler shops, even in Bomet, up or in Chepalungu and Longisa, when you walk, you see the wall is mosaic until it has lost color because there are many display of many things from public health, from county, from national government. So the person who normally go and inspects, what were they doing? We must be told, and that is the possibility of prosecution. Number three, Mr. Speaker, and with your indulgence, at least I have seen in Speaker's gallery, Mr. Speaker, I have seen my students from ACK, Bishop Kogo, Cheptil, with 109 students and 16 teachers, Mr. Speaker, from Nandi County, Masab Sub-County, Nandi North are here with us, and I'm happy at least they have walked in, Mr. Speaker, when I'm dispensing wisdom freely on this motion on compensation, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy when they go back home as they start their holidays, probably this Easter week, Mr. Speaker, they will be able to greet their parents and to tell them their senator is overworking, because it's now 6 and most of the and senators are overworking.
Senator Cherargei.
Yes, Mr.
It
Speaker.
would have been prudent and of utmost respect to them for you to make arrangements for them to be formally welcomed to this house.
Yes.
It would really have been very prudent, but nonetheless, I'm happy that you're also acknowledging them. And of course, as you've said, senators are overworking.
Yes.
Of course, including their senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that indulgence. You know, I'm being told by Secretariat, we have so much number of schools coming in, even from Bomet and across the country, because most of them are going for their holiday recess. But I know, with your indulgence, I know on behalf, even you yourself, Mr. Speaker, that they are welcome and they should learn as much as possible. And I hope when they go back home, they will have opportunity to see one of their representatives in action, so that in future we want them to be senators, members of national, to be speaker like you, Mr. Speaker, to be lawyers, to be pastors, to be people who can serve this nation with distinction. So they should feel welcome on behalf of you, Speaker, and the House. And Mr. Speaker, I've addressed them outside, and I've done the needful that is normally done when you have visitors from your home county. And Mr. Speaker, if you will be gracious enough and you still feel that your message should reach Nandi, you are still welcome to organize. And even Senator Mohammed Abbas, who is the chair of devolution. Mr. Speaker, finally, because so that I give colleagues, is the fourth point I wanted to make. The connection of electricity in this country, Mr. Speaker, we should relook at it. We should, Mr. Speaker, I was in a village, Mr. Speaker, somewhere in Tindred. And you see, Mr. Speaker, most of the wires that are belong to Kenya Power and Lighting Company, Mr. Speaker, they are almost falling off. Because, Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure the issue of gas is a very sensitive issue. Mr. Speaker, we have had cases where the explosion of gases, Mr. Speaker, we have seen, even I want to challenge EBRA. Mr. Speaker, sometimes you drive, you see a lorry that is carrying LPG gas has got an accident. Mr. Speaker, we should even earmark roads, or we ensure the people who carry inflammable gas, especially our lorries. I remember in Karai many years ago, Mr. Speaker, in Naivasha, there was an accident where there was a spillover of a highly inflammable material, Mr. Speaker. So even as we talk about LPG gas licensing within the residential areas, Mr. Speaker, we must also ensure the transportation of gas and many others are done within a proper regulations. Sometimes you drive to Bomet through Mayu, you meet the highly inflammable gas being transported, they get accident, it becomes a danger to pedestrians, Mr. Speaker. Why don't we as a country even regulate and say the LPG gas carrying lorries, Mr. Speaker, should maybe have their own lane, or they should be driven at night, Mr. Speaker, or they should be driven at a particular speed, because most of them get accidents, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fifth point that I wanted to make is we need, and I want the Committee of Energy to give us, within 90 days, give us an audit of LPG gas production companies within the estates. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected the committee by today evening, or by the laying of this report, Mr. Speaker, this motion, they should be telling us there has been an order by EPRA and through the Senate Committee of Energy that any LPG producing areas, liquefied petroleum gas plants within any residential area should be banned. That is the only way Kenyans will respect us as a house. They should be closed anywhere, they should be locked, Mr. Speaker, and any person who is found to operate those LPG gases without the approval, Mr. Speaker, of IPRA and other regulating agencies, Mr. Speaker, then we must ensure. You remember, Mr. Speaker, and you are mentioning career progress of the assistant chief and the chief when you made your submission today in the afternoon, Mr. Speaker, which was very brilliant, is that even these assistant chiefs, the chiefs, Mr. Speaker, the Nyumba Kumi, the Kokwet elders or elders, what do you call the Kokwet elders, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Cherargei, mind your language. That
Oh,
is not
sorry.
parliamentary language. They are called village managers.
No, you know, I've gone back to my village in Kapkeben. Sorry, my apologies.
You are still in parliament. Mind the parliamentary language that is approved to be utilized while you are addressing the House.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker, and I withdraw and apologize. You know, when I'm thinking, Mr. Speaker, I think in Kinande, then translate in English. So you have to forgive me, Mr. Speaker, for that slip of thinking or slip. It should be village elders. And you are very clear, Mr. Speaker, that in Gao, Mr. Speaker, you are very clear that we need career progression of assistant chiefs and chiefs, Nyumba Kumi and village elders. And you know, in a local, I think, where I come from, sometimes they are referred to Mukasa. Where you and me come from, they are referred to Kokwet elders with the indulgence of the standing orders, Mr. Speaker. Even where I come from, Mr. Speaker, those people are very critical and very important into our society. In fact, how do we ensure compliance and intelligence within a community? Mr. Speaker, we should ensure the Ngao have opportunity, Mr. Speaker. They should have an opportunity to give intelligence of this operated, Mr. Speaker, of this operated, how can I put it, this liquefied LPG gas, Mr. Speaker, that are normally operated so that we use Ngao. And that is why I was saying today in the afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and the House agreed with me that, Mr. Speaker, that village elders, or we call them Kokwet elders, or we call them Mukasa, or you call them village elders, we must remunerate them, Mr. Speaker. For example, myself, Mr. Speaker, in Kapkeben village, in Mosoria, where I come from, my local village elder is called Christopher Arab Rotich. If I want to listen to the intelligence of the ground on security, on issues of marital, on issues of what is happening in the society, it is the correct person. But, Mr. Speaker, we don't need them to go to school. Why would you need academic qualification to be a village elder? You just need, Mr. Speaker, to understand the culture and the norms, and maybe mature 40 years, and you are married and you have a family, then we must give them the stipend, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, today you are talking about career progression. Let us use Ngao to give us the intelligence, because I know sometimes the LPG gas plants might be operating illegally. And that is how we'll be able to fight this menace, Mr. Speaker. The sixth point that I wanted to make is it possible under EPRA, Mr. Speaker, to put on the website so that Kenyans with digital era, Mr. Speaker, there is TikTok nowadays, there is Instagram, there is Facebook, there is Twitter. Why don't they publish on the website and say, in Bomet, there are particular LPG plant companies that are there. What is the place? What is the address? Who is the owner? So that if that explosion happens, Mr. Speaker, we can easily trace that if it is XYZ that operates LPG gas plant somewhere in for example, in Tenwek, for example. I know Tenwek has a very good hospital, and I'm happy you just opened a new wing. I think also you are alumni of Tenwek High School, and I'm happy that that school, I saw former Franklin Bett was wearing a shirt, or Kinyasa in indulgence. I didn't see you wearing, but I hope in future you can wear the old uniform, Mr. Speaker. So, well, let us know if, for example, in Tenwek, for example, is there an LPG gas plant, Mr. Speaker, so that we can audit, so that when we tell Wananchi, Mr. Speaker, go and confirm. Nowadays, with the era of information, it is very easy, Mr. Speaker, that we are going to ensure, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and therefore we must give even your visitors that are still here, Mr. Speaker, you know there were quite a number. There were 109 students from ACK Cheptil, ACK Bishop Kogo Cheptil School in Masab Sub-County, Nandi North, Mr. Speaker. There were many of them. Now this is a generation of information. In fact, these young girls and boys who are seated here know more than us, because this is a generation of digital, this is a generation of information. They know a lot of things, unlike our era, Mr. Speaker. I don't know the other ones who are called Gen Z. There is the Alpha. I don't know which group is this. But they know much more than we know as during our era, Mr. Speaker, because this is a digital and information age, and we want to wish them well as they go back to school and continue to learn, Mr. Speaker. So on this issue of regulation of EPRA, we want to urge them, Mr. Speaker, let us have people who do their job. EPRA, your job is not only to read the prices of petroleum from January to December. Let us see EPRA in action, Mr. Speaker, so that we are very ensure, Mr. Speaker, so that there is accountability. I know for us politicians, our accountability is quite high, Mr. Speaker. But I've never, when we want to hold accountability to these people, Mr. Speaker, they find it very hard to be accountable, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to say this motion and the report of the Committee of Energy on the issue of inquiry into the LPG gas explosion in Muradi area, Embakasi, Nairobi City County. The Kenyans who lost their lives and property must be compensated. The people who committed criminal negligence, including the owners, regulators, and approvers, must be criminally charged for criminal negligence. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the LPG gas plants in our estates, in residential areas, must be immediately shut down. And finally, Mr. Speaker, compensation must happen. And finally is to urge EBRA to do more than just reading the prices of fuel from January to December. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, and indulgence, I beg to support this motion that came on behalf of the Energy Committee on the issue of LPG and in Muradi area in Embakasi constituency in Nairobi City County. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Cherargei, Senator Fonandi, for your contribution to this particular motion, which of course is very important. Now, honorable senators, there being no other senator who is keen on contributing, I would like to ask Senator Abbas to reply on behalf of the chairperson of the Energy Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Committee of Energy, report that has been presented, I want to join my colleagues also to commend the committee for the excellent report they have done, and thank the Senator and those who have contributed. Honorable Speaker, as you're aware, this report is of national interest, and I think we need to have more times of debating, and therefore I beg to reply with those remarks. And pursuant to Standing Order 663, I request that the putting of the question be deferred to a later date. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Abbas. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 66, the putting of the question as regards this motion is deferred to a later date. Now, Honorable Senators, with that, we have consulted with the chairperson of Devolution Committee, the Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, with regards to the motion under order number 18, and in the absence of member to second, we will defer moving of that motion. Similarly, Standing Order 19 serves the same fate. Now, in the absence of the movers of orders under Standing Order motion, order paper number 20, motion progress report of the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration into an inquiry on the diversity and inclusivity in the staff composition of state agencies in Kenya, Order 21, Order 22, Order 23, Order 24, and Order 25. The movers are absent in the House. All of them are hereby deferred to a later sitting of the House. Now, honorable members, we may rise. Honorable senators, and therefore, there being no other business, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 8th of April, 2025 at 2:30 p.m.